And that's where the birth of that idea came from. Was I was like, silence, natural silence. I'm not talking birds chirping and water flowing. That's all great, but natural, unspoiled by man-made noises, like it's basically extinct. You can't find it anymore. And so I wanted to go. Is there any place left in the United States in the lower 48 that you can go to find true silence?
Welcome to Backpacker Radio, presented by The Trek, brought to you by Element. I am your co-host, Zach Badger Davis. Sitting to my left is
Katie Jackson, a.k.a. Double Dip.
Double Dip in the seat today. I got a few reminders before we get to today's very fun interview. The first is, this is probably going to be your last reminder via this podcast, that we are hosting the Seattle The Trek / Backpacker Radio Hiker Meetup. That's going down. Katie's learning about this, or she learned about it 30 seconds before I pushed the button here. So.
But I'm very excited.
Yeah. We're doing a get-together for the Seattle area hiker trash / if you're a fan of the Trek and or Backpacker Radio, we want you to come out. But this is going to be held at Gasworks Brewing on Monday, August 17th. That's going to start at 6 p.m., go till 8:30. We're going to have some fun door prizes. Katie will be joining me. Real Hiking Viking will be there as well. It's going to be a very good time. So if you are in the greater Seattle area, we would love if you could show out for that one. Next is, if you're not already subscribed to the Trek's YouTube, please do so. We've got some amazing content going out through there. Katie has recently you've done 5, 6 videos at this point?
Something like that.
Yeah, a lot of videos. The Andrew Skirka Q&A series just came out today as of this recording. All the Andrew Skirka content has been amazing. You guys will definitely love that. So please go over to the Trek's YouTube, comment, subscribe. Same deal with Backpacker Radio YouTube. What's up, guys? Last but not least, if you want to support the show, you can do so. Patreon.com/Backpacker Radio is where you can go to get every episode advertisement free. But also, one of the new perks is courtesy of today's co-host, Katie Jackson, Double Dip, is we're toying with a new series here, sort of a This Week in Trails, where Katie's going to break down some recent events happening in the thru hiking community. Do you want to give a teaser, or should we just let people?
Sure. I feel like all of the new things in trails, they're never good, but they're usually juicy. So this one is looking at a search and rescue incident where both the sheriff's office and the person who got search and rescued published rather scathing accounts of what happened on Facebook, and they're kind of being tried in the court of public opinion.
Hell yeah. So if you want a taste of that, you don't actually have to be a supporter of Patreon, though you can be, because we're going to use that as the bonus segment for today's show. But you'll get that 3 or more weeks earlier via Backpacker Radio's Patreon. It'll be way more timely, obviously. And we're hoping to make that more of a regular thing. And as you guys are well aware, Katie is our lead writer, and she has her finger on the pulse with all things news related through hiking, gear, etc. So this will be a very fun series that I'm looking forward to.
When you sweat, you lose a lot more than water. You're burning through sodium, potassium, magnesium, all the stuff your body needs to keep going strong on trail, thinking clearly, and sleeping well at night. That's why I am a huge fan of LMNT. It's a zero sugar electrolyte mix with a science-backed ratio that's heavy on sodium, which is exactly what thru hikers and long-distance backpackers are losing all day long. No sugar, no junk, just what your body actually needs. When I'm backpacking, I'll usually drink one LMNT throughout the day, and I'll have another packet before bed. It helps me rehydrate, it keeps the leg cramps away, and I wake up feeling like $1,000,000. Another underrated benefit, LMNT makes those dodgy water sources actually taste good. If you've ever filtered from a silty creek, a cow tank, or some lukewarm pipe sticking out of the ground, you will know how clutch that is. It's not just an on-trail thing either. LMNT is my go-to hangover prevention tool. One packet before bed, one in the morning, and it's like hitting the erase button on a night of bad decisions. My favorites are LMNT, raspberry, and citrus. A cold LMNT lemonade on a hot day tastes like absolute heaven. And the citrus works shockingly well as a no-calorie mix-in for a margarita, perfect while car camping, or the lazy version at home. Good news, Backpacker Radio listeners can score a free LMNT sample pack with any drink mix purchase by going to drinklmnt.com/trek. That sample pack includes citrus salt, raspberry salt, watermelon salt, and orange salt. 2 stick packs of each flavor, 8 total. No coupon code needed, you just have to use the URL. Again, that's drinklmnt.com/trek to get 8 free packets with any drink mix purchase. The deal is only available for a limited time.
Okay, let's get right to today's main event. That is the interview with Steven of MyLifeOutdoors. We are joined by today's guest, Steven of MyLifeOutdoors. Steven is a backpacker with a mild obsession for all things gear-related. On his channel, he covers everything from beginner backpacking tips and tests on the newest cutting-edge technology to ultralight setups and more traditional loadouts. Steven started YouTube full-time in 2021 and has grown his following to hundreds of thousands on Instagram and more than, I think this is badly out of date, it says 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. I think this is when we first scheduled the interview, which kudos to the
It's grown
growth.
a little bit since then.
Yeah, you're well over 1 million now, right?
1.2. I'm almost at 1.25 million.
Let's start there. So what was the gasoline on the fire that got you from, I think we had this scheduled last year, and then you grew more than 500,000 subscribers in 6-ish months?
Yeah, so that's actually kind of a crazy story. So one of the reasons why we weren't able to meet last year was because my wife, unfortunately, was diagnosed with cancer. It's been a really crazy year. She was diagnosed with 3 different types of cancer, all in the span of 12 months.
Wow.
Started with thyroid cancer, then she was diagnosed with ductal carcinoma, which is a type of breast cancer, and then she was diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer, which is the worst type of breast cancer you can get. And so it was just a crazy year, and that was right about the time that we were trying to get together to do a podcast,
Right.
and I think we had some scheduled, and I was just like, you know what, I just don't think I can make it, and I apologize.
Was it all separate instances, or was it just a metastasis that went in 3 different areas?
Yeah, no. So it happened. So she had the thyroid cancer, I think, last year around, we had that taken out. Her thyroid was removed around April. And then in June, July-ish, she was diagnosed with the ductal carcinoma, which is probably the best case scenario for breast cancer. And there was another, I don't think they saw the mass. There was some, I remember what it was. They wanted to do an MRI because they were concerned about how far the ductal carcinoma had spread through her breast, and they were wanting to get a really good picture of how much they needed to take when they did a mastectomy. And so they did this MRI, and a lump showed up on the MRI that turned out to be, they did a biopsy and turned out to be the triple-negative breast cancer. And so it was kind of just boom, 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 like that. And it was about a year-long journey that we went through with chemotherapy, and then she, so chemotherapy, and then she had the mastectomy, and we thought we were going to have to go through radiation, but she had a complete pathological response to the chemotherapy, which is very rare. And
Wow.
usually, without that complete pathological response, she would have to go through about 6 to 8 weeks of radiation, but did not have to do that because of new studies that have come out saying that they do not think that it benefits the patients to do radiation when they've had a complete pathological response. I think there's like a 1% improvement, and they were like, there's a lot of downsides to radiation, and a 1% improvement
The risk
is
reward
not,
does not
exactly.
make sense.
And so we did not have to do radiation. She's continuing through immunotherapy right now, and that will happen until late October. And so, yeah.
Wow.
But, yeah, so.
Is that she's lucky there's like a biological mechanism at play, or has the like tech behind chemo improved? Like, I guess I'm very ignorant on the subject altogether.
Yeah, so from what I understand, immunotherapy is the big difference in how breast cancer is treated today as opposed to how it was treated, I think, even as soon as 5 years ago. And so immunotherapy is a new-ish treatment in the way, and so I know a little bit, but I could be saying things wrong here. And so the way I understand immunotherapy is that it targets your immune system towards cancer cells. And so the whole time that she was doing chemotherapy, she was also doing immunotherapy. And I think it's that combination of the chemotherapy and the immunotherapy that helped her have this complete pathological response, which again is a very rare instance, rare case in which that happens. And again, she'll continue to do the immunotherapy through October, but from what I understand, that's the big difference, and it's the immunotherapy on top of the chemotherapy that is changing the statistics around breast cancer. Because when we were first diagnosed, like we're reading through, like the survival rates and all kinds of different things like that, and it's really, really scary stuff. And especially
What were the survival rates for triple negative?
And so if it's just triple negative, it hasn't spread anywhere. I'm trying to remember it's been a while since I've looked at them, but I want to say it was like 75% 5-year survival rate. So 75% of patients survive 5 years. If it has spread beyond the breast, which it had spread to my wife's lymph nodes, it goes down to, oh goodness, I cannot remember. But if it has spread even beyond the lymph nodes, I think it ends up being like a 10% 5-year survival rate. And so we knew that it had spread to her lymph nodes. We were unsure if it had spread any farther than that. And so we were waiting on a PET scan, and we had some issues and some complications getting the PET scan scheduled. And so it was taking a lot longer than even though our doctors were really wanting to wait to do this PET scan, which is a full body scan for cancer, basically. And so we were just emotional wrecks waiting for that to get scheduled. And then once she had done the PET scan, waiting for the results, because we were just trying to figure out had it spread anywhere past the lymph nodes. And I remember whenever we got that diagnosis, it was such a huge relief, because that took her survival rate from what would have been around like 15% closer to like 75%. But again, talking about the immunotherapy, from what I understand and from what our doctors have told us since then, those are old statistics. And so that was the survival rates before immunotherapy. And we haven't had enough time pass with immunotherapy treatments to know what it is, but doctors can already tell that it has improved quite a bit, the survival rate.
I know in the past 10 years, the delivery mechanism for chemotherapeutics for specifically triple HER-negative breast cancer has also changed very dramatically. Was there any difference in how the administration of the chemotherapy?
Now that I don't know. So she had a port put in, which from what I understand, it's a tube that goes directly into the heart, and they access that port. And, they have a little device that it's like a needle that basically sticks into the skin and accesses the port, and then they inject it straight there, so straight into the heart. And that's how they do the immunotherapy too. And so I don't know how they did it before that, but that's definitely the way that my wife did it. And then she had a couple different types of chemotherapy. One in particular, I can't remember the technical name, but the nickname that has been given is called the Red Devil. And that has to be administered by hands with nurses. So otherwise, most chemotherapy, they just have a machine, that just does it. With the Red Devil, there's a concern about it. If I remember correctly, I think the concern is that it could bust out of the tube system and get other places, and so they have to make sure that they are getting a blood. So they squeeze a little bit and then they pull back to make sure they get blood coming back. But the Red Devil looks like Hawaiian Punch to me, and so they've just got these big syringes that are hooked up to my wife's heart, and they're just injecting what looks like Hawaiian Punch straight into my wife's heart, and that was the really hard chemotherapy, and so it really would wipe her out, and it would take they were doing that every 3 weeks, and it seemed like it would take 2 weeks for her to recover from that treatment. And then she'd really start feeling not good. She would start feeling relatively good for about a week. And then she'd have to go back in and get another treatment. And so if I remember correctly, I think we did 4 treatments of the Red Devil. And then that completed out our chemotherapy regimen.
What a name, the Red Devil.
Again, that's the nickname.
Yeah,
but that's the one that has stuck in my head.
Sure.
That's obviously so hard for her to go through, and kudos to her, and I'm glad it sounds like she's doing well. How was that for you to manage being a partner with a career who's also supporting her through that time? Well,
so that gets back to the original question. And so once all these diagnoses, however you say that, once they had all come through, I realized that I was going to have to cut back quite a bit to support her. And so I did, and I started to cut back first without telling my audience. And then I realized, like, okay, some people are going to realize, that I'm not posting. Did people realize? I don't know. I don't get to see every comment that comes through. And I have someone that answers emails for me. And so I only get the emails that seem most pertinent to me. So I don't know if anyone noticed or not, but I was feeling, because I was posting close to 4 times a month. And then I went down to about once a month. And so I was like, there's a big difference here in the amount of content that's coming out. And my audience probably needs to know that. And my wife is a big person. She's really big on transparency. and just being authentic and real. And so she was encouraging me, hey, you should let your audience know that something's going on. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I had gone up to the mountains for something else. I can't remember what I was there, but I was like, I had my camera with me. I was like, I'm just going to sit down and just record something while I'm out here. And so didn't plan anything out, didn't script anything. I just turned on the camera and talked for like 15 minutes.
Especially because your videos are so beautifully produced. There's so much production value.
Yeah, quite a bit different from what I typically put out.
Right.
What was the reception to that?
So it blew me away. I was expecting that to hit my core audience, which is somewhere around 50 to 100,000 people. Those are the people that it seems like just about anything I put out, they will watch. And so that's what I was expecting it to get to, was maybe 50,000 views, something like that. And it was shooting up quite a bit. I think it ended up being, I don't know if you know about YouTube, but YouTube gives you statistics where they tell you the rank of your video compared to your last 10 videos. And so I think it shot up to like 1 of 10, which is very rare, for something like that. And I was just like, man, I don't know what is different about this other than that I was just being real, unfiltered, and authentic in this video. And so I think it went up to around 900,000 something views, completely surpassing what I thought was going to happen with this. And then I got an email, random, just a cold email from Luke Nichols from the Outdoor Boys, who I'd never met, never spoken to, I did not know Luke prior to this. And he just sent an email saying, hey, I saw your video. I've watched your channel for a while. I was wondering if I could make a video for you. I know how hard it is to be a creator and try, and have, family stuff going on at the same time. And at first I didn't think it was real. YouTubers get a lot of scam emails too, like people posing as like Nike and like all kinds of different things. They're just trying to.
He also needed you to wire him $10,000.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, I think I sent it to some friends. I was like, do you think this is legit? And so I was like, well, he's not asking for bank account information or anything like that. And so I was like, I'll hop on a call with him. And on the call, I was like, it sounds like Luke, but then I'm also like, this is the era of AI. And so I'm like, all right, again, not asking for any bank details or anything like that, not asking me to transfer any money. And it, then the conversation was very real and authentic, and I was like, man, this seems like the real deal. And it seems like, a really awesome thing. And so we talked about a couple ideas. He's like, I'm going to go out, I'm going to film a video. He filmed a video and then just gifted it to me and said, this is your video. You publish it on your channel, and do with it what you will.
Wow.
And so for context, especially if people haven't watched his channel at all, because he retired earlier last year. I think around April he retired and had decided that the fame was becoming a little bit too much. And so before he retired, his videos were averaging between 10 and 20 million views a video.
Yeah, he's got 20 million subscribers.
Yes. Yeah.
And not that many videos.
I know.
He went from 0 to mega famous pretty quickly. It seems like.
And so I think it shot up several million, if I remember correctly, I think it shot up several million subscribers in the course of about 6 months. So he really blew up. And I think that was around the time, just based off conversations I've had with him, that he started to realize if his channel continued to grow at that rate, it was going to be unsustainable for his family. And part of that was because he couldn't even walk 5 feet in the grocery store without someone stopping him, asking for a picture, asking for an autograph, asking all kinds of different things. And I think his wife was getting some of the same stuff because she'd been on the channel a few times. She wasn't like a regular, appearance or anything like that. And so she couldn't go to the grocery store in Anchorage, Alaska. Couldn't go to the grocery store, without getting stopped.
Is that something you worry about ever?
I don't think I'm going to become that famous.
1 million subscribers is definitely, you're in the, I'm sure you get recognized.
Maybe you can go 20 feet in the grocery store.
No, I can get in and out of most places without people recognizing me. On the trail, I will get recognized on the trail almost every time I'm out if there's other people. I was hiking just after AT days in the, what was that? The Massey Gap area. And I think I got recognized like 6 times in the first mile. And I was like, okay, which it does not bother me at all. Like I really do authentically enjoy it. And I authentically enjoy talking to the fans. If I couldn't go to the grocery store, that would be a much different story, you know. So stopping on the trail, people just saying hi, and for the most part, maybe I don't know, maybe there's something different about the way that people want to connect with Luke as opposed to the way that they want to connect with me. But for the most part, people are like, oh, don't want to bother you, just want to say, hey, I watch your stuff, you know. And most of the time I'm like, you know, hey, like, stop, shake my hand, tell me your name, you know, stuff like that, and thank you for watching, all that kind of stuff. But it seems like there's a lot of people that feel this separation that I don't necessarily feel now. I'm sure it could get there very quickly, but for the most part, yeah.
A lot of directions to go here. So I want to go back to your wife. It sounds like she's doing much better.
She is. She's doing much better.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you
I'm
very
sure
much.
that's got to be the biggest relief of all time.
It is. There's still quite a bit of fear of recurrence. And so if a recurrence is going to happen, it's going to happen in the first 5 years. And so there's definitely this heightened sense that every ache, every pain, every you know, minor thing that you or I might just be like, oh, you know, like, I don't know what that is, you know, I got a new sore somewhere. It certainly does bring in a question like, okay, is this another type of cancer? Is this a recurrence? Is this, you know, something else? And so there is definitely that fear, and there's still a lot of mental toll, you know, that has come along with that. But medically speaking, we are past the worst of the cancer treatment. And so I have tried to ramp back up my schedule, and then just this month I was like, okay, maybe I ramped it up a little bit too much, and I had to cut back a little bit more. But things are much better.
Does it change your outlook on life as a whole, like having gone through something like this? Like, does your work-life balance change, or like just your perspective of that balance?
I mean, there's certainly that thought of time is elusive and need to be spending it, you know, with my family as much as I possibly can. I also realize that I'm the primary breadwinner for our family, and my channel is the way that I do that. And so my kids will say to me quite a bit, you know, like, oh, you're always gone, which I'm not, you know, but they're like, you're always gone, you're always leaving, you're always going to spend the night somewhere. And my wife is really good at saying, that's your dad's job, and you know, if he had any other job, he would have to be gone, maybe even more than he is now. And so that's the way that we get the food and the toys and all the things that we have. And so it's really nice that she supports me in that way and helps us keep that perspective, especially with the kids.
Yeah. Thank you, Katie. It's unusually noisy here today because of the AC issue, so I apologize.
Yeah, no problem.
How old are your kids?
So get ready. I've got 4 kids. My oldest is 25. So I got a 25-year-old. She still lives with us. A 16-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 6-year-old. That's
quite the spread.
It is quite the spread. We joke that we only intended to have one of those. all the others were a surprise. The 16-year-old was actually the only one that we intended to have.
Okay.
And so, especially whenever, because a lot of times our kids will accuse my youngest of being my favorite. You know, they're like, "Oh, she's your favorite," and I'm like, "Well, no, technically, you know, River is our 16-year-old. River's the only one I intended to have." You know, and so
just laying it out there, letting them know that's funny.
Are they interested in the outdoors in the way you are, or is that something that doesn't really spark joy? My 2 youngest love to camp. Backpacking is something that we've only done short backpacking trips. We had an early backpacking trip with my son. Then we realized that he's got an exertion limit that we were not quite ready for, and we may have tried to put him on a little bit too much of a hike to begin with. But he may not like that I'm telling this story. But we took him backpacking for the first time, and so I had my this was a few years ago, so my 16-year-old was probably, I don't know, 13 or 14. He was closer to 8, and my 6-year-old she was basically in a pack. She could walk, but I was carrying her in a pack. So I had her in a pack, plus backpacking gear. Everybody had their own backpacks, and we were going like 3 miles in. And I think I had 1,500 feet of elevation gain. And so it's a hike that my wife and I had done before, and we were like, beautiful hike. It's not that hard. You know, we're going to go in, we're going to have a great time. And we get about a quarter mile from where we're planning on camping, and my son, who's 8 at the time, is just like, I'm done. I'm not taking another step.
And I'm like, buddy, like, you have to.
I don't know kid development. I don't know if 8. How big are they? Can you carry him, or is that
No,
he's
not
gotta
really.
do it?
Yeah, no, he's got to do it. And so, I mean, we're like on the side of a mountain, you know, like a trail that's just kind of like edged out of the side of the mountain. And I'm like, we could not camp here if we wanted to, you know. And so we have to keep going. And so, you know, but he's just like, I can't do it. And so I take some stuff out of his pack. No, so I take his pack. I pull my youngest out and make her walk. And I put his pack where she was in my pack. And so I'm carrying his pack, and he kind of just makes it to camp, you know, as best as he can. We set up a tent. I think it's like 5 o'clock, you know, in the evening at that point. Set up a tent, and he crashes immediately and sleeps for hours, to the point that my wife and I are like, is he okay? Like, do we need to push the button, you know, like the SOS, you know, the Garmin button? Like, never on any trip have I considered pushing the button until this point, because I'm like, I'm not sure that he's all right, you know. So we all eat dinner, we're checking on him, you know, and he's just out. And then at 9 o'clock at night, he pops up and it's like, I'm hungry, and it just seems completely normal. And so we're like, whew, like, he's okay, you know, like everything's fine. And we just really wore him out, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And so we get him some food. We go back to bed. We're worried that he's not going to go back to sleep, but he does. We go back to bed. The next morning, I take some stuff out of his pack. We're going downhill the whole way. And I'm thinking, okay, we're going to be great. And he's doing fine. We get a quarter mile from, it's the hike that we were on is on the Durango-Silverton train. I don't know if you guys have ever done that.
Yeah.
But they drop you off in the middle of nowhere, and then they pick you up in the middle of nowhere. And so we had to get on this train to get out of the woods.
Were you going into the basin? Was it that?
No, so we were the next stop over, which was...
is that the Colorado Trail?
Yeah, I think
stop?
it's Elk Creek is the name of the trail. And so there's a beaver pond about halfway up that trail that I've camped at several times. It's beautiful. And that's where we were hiking to. And so we get about a quarter mile from the train, and like we can hear it like blowing the horn in the valley. And he's like, I'm done. I'm not taking another
You're about to spend another day back here, buddy.
And I'm like, buddy, you have to. Like, we have to get on that train.
It
is the last train for the day, and we are not completely prepared to spend another. I mean, we probably could have done it and we would have been fine, but we're not planning on spending another night out in the woods. And so he managed, you know, I think we carried his pack and did all the things again, but he got out there. And so ever since then, he's been begging me to go again, and we've taken him as a family. He wants to go just he and I. We've gone as a family, but every time I assess a hike now, I'm thinking, okay, like we're trying to do, you know, nothing too hard, nothing too strenuous. We're not going to push anybody. We're going to get to camp early, and everyone's going to be relieved. And those are the types of hikes that we do with a family now. And so
sounds like instead of 3 miles up, you just do 2.75 miles.
Yeah. And
then
mostly what I pay attention to is the elevation gain. And that's the thing that I did not remember from that hike was how much elevation gain there was. And at the time we were living in Texas, we'd come up from Texas, and so he was not used to the elevation. You know, there's a lot of factors at play. And my wife and I done it. We were just like, man, we want to share this place with you. Come on. We're going to go do it. And I had not really, and probably needed to ease him in a little bit more. So,
were you eased into the outdoors as a kid? Is that something that you started doing very young, or was that something you found later in life?
Yeah. So I don't know if my dad likes it when I tell this story, but I realized some point in high school, I think, or maybe I think it was in high school, that I had not played any sports growing up. You know, like I wasn't in football, wasn't in baseball, hadn't done soccer or anything like that. And at one point I realized, especially as a kid growing up in Texas, I realized that was kind of odd, you know, to not be in any organized sports. And so I asked my dad, I was like, hey, Dad, how come you never put me in sports growing up? And my dad does not talk like this, but this is the accent I love to give my dad. He said, well, son, I didn't want to sit outside and watch you.
In Texas,
right, yeah.
Can you blame him?
And I get it now too, you know, because I'm like, yeah, I don't know that I want to go do all that, you know.
Was he an athlete?
Kids. He was not. No.
Okay.
He liked to watch the Cowboys play football, but that's the only sports I remember my dad watching. Only sports I remember my dad being interested in.
Yeah.
And so, but what he did do was we would go to the Texas Hill Country. There's several rivers that you can raft and tube in the Texas Hill Country, and we would tube every summer and camp. And then every winter we would come up here to Colorado and we'd go skiing. Sometimes 2 times a year we'd go skiing when we could afford it. And so I kind of fell in love with the camping in the summer, which we were just doing, you know, car camping and developed campgrounds. And then when I'd come ski in the mountains. And I remember my mom had a friend who she would always talk about him and how she would say something along the lines of, well, when he camps, he doesn't camp like we do. He camps, he has to take all this food and water with him. Because we were always camping in state parks, and there was like RV hookups. We were in a tent, but we could like run a fan, on the RV hookup or whatever. And she's like, there's no electricity, there's no water. He has to take everything with him. And I remember thinking, I didn't know that was called backpacking at the time, but I remember thinking, that's what I want to do. I want to go where I have to have everything with me to go. And so later on in life, because we'd spent so much time rafting the rivers of Texas, of the Texas Hill Country, I decided I wanted to learn how to kayak. And so I bought a kayak. I think early adulthood, I bought a kayak, just found something cheap at big box store, and it was on sale. And so I bought a kayak, started doing like little river trips, started doing a little bit longer river trips, decided I wanted to spend the night on the river because there were certain rivers that I wanted to do that, there's no way you could do it without spending the night. And so I started looking at camping gear that was small and compact enough that it could fit down inside the hull of my kayak. And so that was backpacking gear is what you had to have. And so I bought all this backpacking gear to do these overnight trips on the river. And before long, I realized I've got enough gear that I could, if I just buy a backpack, I could go backpacking. And so did that and went with a friend of mine who had some experience backpacking. Decided I wasn't just going to go on my own, but had some camping experience. Just no real backpacking experience. And
where was that first trip?
It was to Guadalupe Peak in Texas, which is the highest point in Texas. It's almost, I'm trying to remember, I think it's almost 9,000 or just over 9,000 feet. It's about 4,000 feet of elevation gain, and there's a couple of national park campsites near the summit. And so we backpacked up there, camped, and then hit the summit for sunrise and cooked summer sausage on a little skillet while we watched the sunrise on Guadalupe Peak. And I remember thinking it was great. I remember I froze to death. A lot of the gear that I was taking was ski gear, so I had like my ski jacket and and like ski pants, and stuff like that. And I'm backpacking with those, and was embarrassed because I had this friend, that knew what he was doing. I think he'd taken like Knowles courses about backpacking and all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, I got my ski jacket, but had an absolute wonderful time. I remember I had to use the bathroom there up on top of Guadalupe Peak, and so I had to dig a cat hole, and the campsites are just a little ways down. I remember looking out as the sun was kind of coming up, and it's that early dawn light, and digging a cat hole, sitting there watching and thinking, this is the best way to have a bowel movement that there possibly could be.
You're not wrong. How old were you on this hike?
I mean, I was a young adult. I was married already, and so it was 15, 20 something years ago, something like that. So I mean, it's been a little while now, but I was an adult. Yeah.
Did you catch the bug at that moment, or was there a lapse before?
Yes, and so we had moved from the Dallas-Fort Worth area out to West Texas, and there's no rivers out there. So the kayaking bug was pretty much dead because I couldn't, and it was too far to travel really to get anywhere that there was a navigable river. And so my love for the outdoors, I guess, kind of shifted. We were much closer to the mountains of New Mexico, the mountains of Big Bend and Davis Mountains and the Guadalupe Mountains. And so I could get out to there. I'm sorry?
Why'd you guys move?
Just a job. We were moving out there because of a job.
Okay.
And yeah, so I was just much closer to the mountains and could get out to those mountains, within about 4 hours drive, which in Texas, everything takes you a long time to get anywhere. And so the 4 hours, to get to the mountains was really manageable and doable. And so just spent a bunch of time out there in the mountains and started backpacking more and more, and I've always kind of had an affinity for gear, and and so it just kind of developed over time.
If you're in the market for stylish, affordable shades that actually hold up on trail, listen up. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses brand on a mission to make premium eyewear accessible to everyone, and they've got over 300,000 5-star reviews to back that up. Polarized lenses with super clean optics, durable frames, solid hinges, and clean classic styles that look sharp on and off trail. And my favorite part, their lost and broken protection program. Drop them in a creek, sit on them at camp, leave them in a hitch. They've got you covered from day one. Just reach out and they'll send you a new pair. No stress, no hassle. Finally, sunglasses you don't have to worry about babying on trail. Discount time, Backpacker Radio listeners. Shady Rays is offering you their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code TREK for 40% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That's 40% off 2 or more pairs at shadyrays.com with code TREK, T-R-E-K. This deal is only good for a limited time, so do not wait. So that's my question, is your background in science, because your videos are amazing, and like the lab settings that you're able to create at home are really impressive. Do you have an educational background in science? Like, where does that spark?
I do not. No, I'm just interested in it. And so one of the big influences I think that growing up, I say growing up, it was mostly young adulthood, but I guess I count that still as growing up. I remember watching the Mythbusters. And so the Mythbusters always kind of had this science element to it, or they were applying the scientific method to what they were doing to bust these myths, even though I'm not sure that either one of them have it's all special effects background, and I always just love the way that they approach things, and they're like, okay, we want to test whether or not this is true, and so this is the way that we're going to go about it. And I was always just kind of homegrown, hands-on, piecing it together, trying to figure out how to make it work, and I just loved that method. And so as I started reviewing gear more and more, I was getting tired of of having nothing to offer other than my opinion. So I'm like, well, I took it out and I liked it, but why did I like it? I don't know, because, it was, it felt a little bit more comfortable. Well, was it more comfortable, or was that just me, that kind of stuff. And so then I was like, okay, I want to find a way so that I can give the audience some empirical evidence, so that they don't have to just trust my word for it.
So at this point, you already had a channel doing gear reviews?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and so jumping way ahead. So from just watching Mythbusters, as a young adult, and learning to kayak and and backpack and all that stuff, to jumping way ahead, several years down the road, a decade or more down the road. And so that's how the science element got brought into the channel, was because I've always just been a big fan of science and love learning stuff that's interesting, and my curiosity is always kind of going wild. My wife will say that my brain will not rest until I can understand why something works the way that it works. And so I'm constantly just okay, this does this, but why does it do that? And I can't stop until I figure it out. And then once I figured it out, I know what I had to go through to figure out what it was. And so then it's much easier for me to relay that to someone else, because of the effort I went through to figure out, why it works the way that it does.
Are your kids into your content? I feel like it'd be really cool to have an outdoor Bill Nye running the shop from my home, breaking down these really complex topics.
So my son, he's probably the most likely to be interested in it. My older kids are not. What's funny is my daughter had a boyfriend for a long time who was watching the channel, and so I would get little comments from him through her, where she'd say, hey, he said this about your most recent video, and then she would be like, what was that video about? Because she would start getting interested because of that. But my son, for a long time, he had a pretend channel that he called the World's Best Hiker. And we even, for his birthday one year, we made up shirts, that said, because I think my older daughter, she made a logo for him. She's very artsy, and so she made a logo for him. And then so we took that logo and we put them on shirts, and the whole family had the World's Best Hiker shirts. And there's a really cute story that we love to tell. We were hiking. It's just a little day hike with a family somewhere, I think in eastern Arkansas, and there was several little stream crossings. And my son was very young at the time. And so at some point, streams that we could just step across, but he would have to get his feet wet. And so we would pick him up and just, hold, carry him across a stream. And I remember one point my wife picks him up to carry him across the stream, and he said, "Why are you carrying the world's best hiker?"
That's funny. World's Best Hiker sounds like a good satire Instagram account for someone making fun of through hikers. That's super cool. Okay, I want to get into some of the nitty-gritty subjects that you've broken down. And I think I want to start with the one that Katie brought up before we hit the record button, because I imagine this was the one that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that made the biggest splash for you, because I feel like this was everywhere. Where did this come out? A year and a half, 2 years ago, somewhere in that range?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's been about 2 years now.
Yeah. Where you did the video breaking down PFAS and how the marketing was not necessarily consistent with your findings.
Yeah.
First, tell us what that video was about, and I'm really curious to learn about like the broader impact that you saw from your vantage point.
Yeah, so PFAS is something that, again, I did not even know that it existed until the channel. And so probably the first video of mine that really started gaining traction was a video about DWR treatments. And so DWR, for those of you that don't know, is typically made from PFAS chemicals. PFAS chemicals are a very large range. I think there's like 15,000 something different chemicals. It's either 1,500, 15,000. It's been a while now since I... It's somewhere in there. Yeah. There's a lot of them that fall into this category of PFAS chemicals. And basically what they are designed to do is to make things waterproof. It's basically Teflon. So Teflon is PFAS. The only way that Teflon works is PFAS. But there's a lot of things that fall into this. And it's carbon... Oh, gosh, it's been a little while. And now I feel like I'm forgetting the exact details. Anyway, so it's this chemical that makes things waterproof, and for jackets especially to work properly, rain jackets to work properly, they need a DWR coating. So even Gore-Tex membranes, which Gore-Tex historically, there's a new Gore-Tex that isn't. I want to make sure I'm saying things right. But historically, the Gore-Tex that has been around since like the 70s was made out of Teflon. It's just expanded PTFE, which is what Teflon is. And so it's basically just PFAS chemical compound. But even that, for that to work, that is waterproof. But in order for it to be breathable, it has to have a DWR coating. And I did a video about that, about how if you let your DWR coating, basically go away, because it will after time, you got to retreat it or it's not going to breathe the way that these jackets are intended to breathe. And that was my first video that really catch some traction. And I remember, I was talking about, I didn't have a relationship with Nick Wax at the time, but I was talking about Nick Wax because to me, that was the only, PFAS retreatment that I even knew about at the time. So I'm like, you use Nick Wax, you can retreat your jacket, and then it's, as good as new for a while. And that was basically the gist of the video. And I got tons of comments on that video. What about PFAS? What about PFAS? Or PFCs, as it used to be called. And I remember thinking, what on earth? What is this? Everybody's comment, not everybody, but enough comments that it caught my attention. And so then I went down this rabbit hole. Again, my brain wasn't resting until I understood what was going on with it. And so I went down this rabbit hole of figuring out what PFAS was and realized that PFAS is in all kinds of different things. Basically anything that is oil or water resistant is using some type of PFAS to make it that way, some sort of PFAS treatment.
And are all of them these kind of big, scary, forever chemicals? Are there any naturally occurring PFAS? Is there anything that makes it okay? Or is it
there
just
is
all
no,
that?
as far as I know, there is no naturally occurring PFAS. It is a man-made compound that was accidentally developed by the DuPont industry, like in the 50s or 60s. I can't remember what the scientist was trying to do or the chemist was trying to create, but whatever it was, he accidentally spilt it on his shoe, spilt these, like this Teflon material on his shoe, and then realized that his shoes were basically waterproof at that point. And he was like, what is this that, I spilled on my shoe? Because, again, he was trying to develop something completely different and just kind of stumbled on this discovery that this DWR PFAS treatment works this way. And then he developed it into Teflon and all kinds of different things from there on out.
What would be the difference between a PFAS or something that makes something waterproof or something like a beeswax? Where, in my head, beeswax is also waterproof. Are there natural ways to make things waterproof that does not use PFAS?
So yes, there are chemical compounds that I do not necessarily know what they are, but I know that especially that as PFAS has fallen out of favor in the public eye, that there are brands that are using non-PFAS based DWR treatments to treat their jackets, and they do not work as well, which is the reason why the industry held out for so long on basically on getting rid of PFAS, because they knew that they had these products that worked so well for so long, and then to suddenly switch to what the consumer is going to see as an inferior product they knew that it just was not going to go well for the brand.
When you came out with your video, where in this pushback against PFAS was the consumer life cycle? Was your video kind of at the forefront of people moving away from PFAS, or had people already started to regulate that? I know the EU, I think, was first.
Yeah, so I actually came out with a video. This was not intended at all. I learned about it from the channel, and then I probably sat on the idea, kind of like brewing the idea for a couple of years after I learned about PFAS. And so the more that I dug into it, the more that it felt like everybody knows about this. But it's because I was spending quite a bit of time looking at it. There's a movie that came out that had, I think it had Mark Ruffalo in it. It was called Dark Waters, and it was all about the DuPont cover up of they knew early on that this was bad stuff, and it was like leaching in the farms, and it was killing like some farmers' cows and like all kinds of different stuff, and they were covering up all this stuff, and this farmer basically got this lawyer that did this pro bono case, and they uncovered all the cover up that DuPont had done about Teflon and the dangers, and how women were becoming sterile that were handling it in their factory, and they were covering that up and just moving all the women out of. I mean, there's really crazy stuff, and the movie does a really good job of talking about that. And so that movie had come out, and I'd seen it in the theaters, before I'd even really, before I'd even started the channel, if I remember correctly. I don't remember when it came out.
Looks like 2019.
Yeah, so 2019 was, my channel was a baby channel, 2019. And so I'd seen that, and then I was like, oh, so this stuff that, my commenters are talking about is that stuff that movie was about, and I was kind of connecting the dots, and all that kind of stuff. So it felt like everybody knew about it already. And I actually thought, I'm past the window of this being a good video. This is basically like old news video. But because it took me, I want to say it took me like 8 months from first really starting brainstorming the video idea to completion of collecting all the water samples and all that kind of stuff. It took a really long time to get the video done. We also were moving to Colorado at the time, and so it was not a good year to try to pull off a big video like that. But I remember, and at that point, REI had just made the decision, due in part to members' pressure, to opt out of PFAS, and they had made the decision that starting, when did that video come out? I don't know. Starting the next year, they were not going to sell any products that used PFAS in it. And so that was already on the horizon, and I talked about that a little bit in the video. And then so Gore-Tex was responding to, in part because one of their biggest retailers was not going to sell their products anymore, they were developing a PFAS alternative garment and all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, man, like this, the opportunity has passed. But I went ahead and put out the video anyways because I put so much time and effort into it. And the reaction was surprising to me because it really felt like nobody knew. And I think that even though this had been brewing and coming to a head in some parts of the community, for the most part, most people were unaware. And so I don't know how much I don't know, enlightened the world on that, but it certainly hit a chord around that time and did really well for me.
Yeah.
So
I feel like I'm in a similar situation that you just described, in that, like, if a subject is bubbling up, I'm getting a lot of comments and DMs about it, but that's not necessarily like indicative of the broader audience as a whole.
Right.
Like, it's people at the tip of the spear who are very knowledgeable about a very precise subject, all coming to you to let you know something, but like it's not reflective of the average person out there. So
Right.
I think your video did do a great service. In addition to just like letting people know about the dangers of PFAS, I thought what was interesting about that video is that the chemicals are not stable in these materials. Like, can you go through some of the methodology that you used in the video to show that like these products are actually leaching?
Yeah, and so when that tip of the spear, I guess, started kind of rearing its head, Gore-Tex put out a response video that basically talking about how their product was stable and what
was it a direct response to your video?
It was long before my video,
Okay.
and so I was kind of responding to that response.
Yeah.
And so they put out this video where they're basically saying, cold carbon's bad in some instances, that doesn't mean that this is bad in all instances. Yeah, it can be bad here, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad here. It was kind of the video that they put out, kind of just trying to address, like, we're still a good, safe product. And they were like, our product is very stable. And so there's no need to worry, basically, was the messaging in this video. And I remember thinking, I want to find out if that's true or not. And so what I did was I developed this test where I built a small little rain chamber that was just big enough for like a torso mannequin to fit inside there, put the Gore-Tex jacket on there, so I did not put the Gore-Tex in there yet. First, I put the mannequin in there, built the whole system, ran distilled water through the system for 24 hours, I believe is what it was. And then I tested that water to find it because I wanted to know, like, is there any PFAS?
It's probably PFAS
in my
mannequin.
system. Right, yeah. Which is a big misconception. People think plastic equals PFAS, but it does not. And so I had a lot of plastic parts, but I intentionally, in plumbing, so people use Teflon. They use Gore-Tex basically to wrap plumbing fittings. So PTFE tape is very common in plumbing. And so I intentionally did not use any PTFE tape in the plumbing of my rain system and all that kind of stuff, even though basically all my fittings leaked as a result of that. But it's okay. They were all leaking inside the rain chamber. Ran it for 24 hours, no PFAS. Well, then actually I didn't know because I had to send the water samples off. But I knew, okay, I'm going to see if it goes up because I figured there would be some in there. And I'm going to see how much does it go up. And so then I put the Gore-Tex jacket in there, ran it for another 24 hours, tested the water again. And it was not a large amount. But that is the deal with PFAS, is it is very, very potent stuff. And so I think some of this has been backtracked currently, but at the time of the video, the EPA had just come out with new regulations on PFAS and had determined that, well, first of all, they had determined that no human exposure is a safe level of exposure, but they decided that that was an unrealistic goal to set for, people that are, trying to get PFAS out of water, municipalities and stuff like that. They're like, you're not going to get rid of it because it's everywhere. And so they said, but we want you to try to get it below 4 parts per million or billion. See, I'm forgetting the details now. But it's all in the video. Go watch the video. But anyways, I think it's 4 parts per million is what they wanted it below. And which is not, that's not a lot. That's like 1 drop of water in like 20 Olympic-sized swimming pools.
Wow.
And so you're talking about a very, very small amount, but that's the amount that the EPA was saying, we think that this is the level that we need to get it down to, and we don't even think that's safe for people. And so very small amounts. And so I can't remember what it was, but I want to say it was, I can't remember what it was coming off the jacket, but it was a very small amount, parts per million, parts per billion, somewhere in between there, whatever the details are.
This is saying 4 parts per trillion.
Trillion. It wasn't even million.
Holy
billion.
shit.
It's trillion. Yes,
Yeah.
That's right. 4 parts per trillion is right. And so it was somewhere at or below that level is what came off the jacket. Again, my memory's failing me, but it was. Now, was that coming off of the DWR treatment, which is not stable? And so when Gore-Tex was saying, well, our product is stable, they were talking about the PTF membrane that is what you think of when you think about Gore-Tex. But again, Gore-Tex will not work if you don't have a DWR treatment. And so all Gore-Tex jackets up until just, a couple of years ago were using a PFAS-based DWR treatment in order for the underlying PFAS-based membrane to do what it was designed to do. And so there was something leaching off the jacket. Could have been the DWR treatment, could have been the PTFE membrane itself. There's no way for me to know. But basically what I wanted to establish was this when we're wearing these jackets, it is leaching into the environment, into the pristine environments that we go to recreate and backpack and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have a theory or just like a personal conspiracy theory about how much these modern day hiking companies already knew this?
Oh yeah. So Gore-Tex knew it for a very long time. That's the reason why they put out that jacket. And again, it was sort of this, we don't want to put out an inferior product when we've been putting out this superior product for so long as far as performance is based. And so they didn't want to cut on performance. And that's the reason why a lot of brands were holding out for the longest time on going PFAS-free. Europe went PFAS-free long before we did. And so a lot of the European brands were refusing to work with Gore-Tex and doing their own thing and all that kind of stuff because of laws and regulations in the European Union and stuff like that. And it's still taking the United States a long time to catch up. And even after what we had decided, when my video came out, I think things have backtracked since then. And so you're basically
Wasn't it something like California set different regulations, and then like basically
Yes.
the rest of the country or the brands have to follow suit because like that's such a big market.
Yeah.
They're not going to sell one product to California and a different product elsewhere.
Yeah, so at the time of my video, I think it was California and it was Maine, of all places, that had set regulations on PFAS. And again, because California is that big market, a fifth of the world's, the fifth largest GDP in the world, they have quite a bit of sway. And so people are like, well, we're not going to make one jacket for everybody else and a different jacket for California. And so brands started kind of being forced into it as a result.
Yeah. When we hiked the San Diego Trans-County Trail, one of the campsites closer to San Diego was warning us not to drink the quote-unquote potable water because it had exceeded their PFAS limits.
Oh, yeah.
Which is funny because I'm sure that the PFAS limits at every other campsite in every other state are in excess of that as well, and you would never know. So, yeah, it's just good that there is one major player in the U.S. that is having such an outsized...
Well, and to bring this full circle a little bit, so that video came out probably a year before my wife was diagnosed with cancer. One of the primary symptoms, not symptoms, but one of the primary concerns about PFAS is that its ability to cause different types of cancers, or it's not, maybe not its ability to cause. I want to be careful with the words that I'm using, but that they believe that it could be a cancer-causing substance. And so then for my wife to get diagnosed and us to start thinking, well, why? How did this happen? What caused this? Was there something that we could have done? And all that kind of stuff. It just kind of brought that more into our mindset. And my wife will ask me quite a bit. She'll say something. She's like, "Do you think this has PFAS in it?" And my answer is always probably, because there's no getting away from it at this point. It's literally everywhere.
Wow. Were there any ramifications from that? Were you hearing from big PFAS or Gore-Tex or any of these brands trying to intimidate you with their legal teams or anything?
No, I did not. I was curious about that, and part of what I think could be the case there is that some of these brands that are dealing with this, they know what they're dealing with, and they don't want to put out any more information about it.
Yeah.
The
fact that you didn't hear from them, I think, is telling. You didn't say anything that was incorrect, or even could have been construed incorrectly, because they would have come after you. Yeah. Especially given the impact.
And really, all I was saying was I tested this before and I tested it after, and this is what I saw.
Yeah.
That's really all I was saying is, they're saying this, and this is what I'm seeing with my one test, because the water samples were so expensive. I think it was $600 per test in order to test these. It was between $600 and $1,000, and so it was a very expensive video because I tested 4 different water sources plus the 2 from the Gore-Tex jacket, and so I was spending quite a bit of money on water tests, and so I couldn't afford to do a huge sample size of all these different things. And so again, I've got this one test that I've done this one time, and this is what I found. And so take all that into context as you're thinking about this stuff.
Sure.
I have more PFAS questions, but before that, something about your channel. So if you're spending this much money and this much time, you said it was a multi-month project to put out this video. Obviously it did very well. It went very viral. Has there ever been a video where you invested that amount of time and money into it and it just flopped?
It certainly feels that way. And so you got to be careful with the word flop, because what is a flop for one person is a huge success for another person. And so what I've learned about YouTube is that no matter what level you grow to, no matter what kind of views you start to get, it's never enough. And so if you start getting, an average of 10,000 views, man, you really want 50,000 views. And if you get an average of 50,000, you want 100,000. If you get 100,000, you want, it's never enough. You're always chasing the views. And so, I'm sorry, what was your question one more time?
Have you ever invested that much time and money?
Yes, that's what it was. And so one of my favorite videos is a video about silence disappearing in the wilderness. And this was a video that actually I came up with this idea while I was not living here in Colorado at the time, but I was backpacking here, and I was in the Holy Cross Wilderness, which is just outside the Leadville area. And I was recording a video while I was there. And at the time, I was very sensitive to airplanes because I felt like you could hear them through the microphone, especially the microphone that I was using, could pick up the airplanes. And so, I'm here talking, and this, all of a sudden, this airplane comes over. And so I would stop, and I'd wait for the airplane to pass until I felt like I couldn't hear it anymore. And then I'd start trying to record again. And I was hiking there in the Holy Cross Wilderness, and I counted 34 airplanes back to back. And I was like, this is uncanny, the number of airplanes that are flying over. Like, I just can't imagine that there's that much air traffic coming through this very remote wilderness area. And that's where the birth of that idea came from. Was I was like, silence, natural silence. I'm not talking birds chirping and water flowing. That's all great, but natural, unspoiled by man-made noises, like it's basically extinct. You can't find it anymore. And so I wanted to go. Is there any place left in the United States in the lower 48 that you can go to find true silence? And there's an audio recordist outside of Seattle. I don't remember his name at the moment, but
really quickly, what do you mean by true silence?
So just natural silence.
But does it have to be for a certain duration? Or I think of plenty.
So that's where this guy from Seattle comes in. He was an audio recordist, and he was making, nature tapes basically, or CDs. So you have this, sound of birds chirping and water flowing and rain falling and all that kind of stuff. And so he would go out into the wilderness, and he would take all this audio equipment, and he would get samples. And I can't remember the exact details, but for him to get, I want to say it was something like 15 seconds. For him to get, maybe that's not right. Let's say a minute, because I'm getting all the details mixed up. That's the theme of this this podcast, is I can't remember the details. But I want to say maybe it was a minute. For him to get 1 full minute of undisturbed nature audio, it took him 15 hours of recording time.
Wow.
In order to get that. And a lot of it was aircraft. And so I didn't get to interview him, but I got to interview someone from his team. And they basically, I can't remember the name of the organization now either. See, this is why I need to know. I didn't know what we were going to talk about, so I can look up the details. But anyway, so they go through and they certify natural silent places. And they say, okay, this is a place where you're most likely to experience natural silence.
Do you have a terminology for that? Is it just natural silence? Because what's the phrase for like a certified dark sky?
Yeah, dark sky I think is the phrase.
Yeah. Do they have, what's the corollary for noise?
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember from, because they would certify these places and they would talk about it. And they would say, okay, so like Boundary Waters was one of them. And so Boundary Waters is a certified, natural silence place. Again, they've got different terminology that I can't remember, but if you look it up, you can maybe figure it out. And so I knew that they were doing that. And so I wanted to see, okay, can I find some of these places? And so because they had certified Boundary Waters, that was one of the places I wanted to go to. I pulled up some information about flight paths in the United States. Because again, I was like, all right, I know I can get deep enough in the woods to get away from cars. I know that I can get away from most man-made sounds. It's the aircraft that really is going to be the hardest to get away from. And so I looked at this map of all this air traffic in the United States and realized that most people are flying from the edges. They're flying, anywhere inside the United States. There's not a whole lot of air traffic going out of the United States. And so the borders of our country are the places you're most likely to find natural silence. And so I went to the Boundary Waters, I went to Olympic National Park, and I went to Big Bend National Park, which are all on the edges of the country. And I remember in Boundary Waters, an airplane, I think there was like maybe 5 different airplanes that flew over while I was there. And again, it probably would have qualified for their standard, which was, so much time has to go by without a disruptance. But for me, I was like, man, it's a lot more than I was expecting. And then I went to Seattle.
How long were you in the Texas park?
So I went to Texas last, and I just spent one night in each because that was the answer to your question was that I spent quite a bit of money traveling to these different places. So I was booking airfare, travel out to Boundary Waters, rent a car, drive out there, hike in, hike back out, flew to Seattle, hiked in, rent a car, hiked back out, flew to Texas, which I was living in Texas at the time, so it wasn't as much, but spent quite a bit of money on travel doing all these different, samples. I even went and sat in an anechoic chamber at the University of Texas at Austin, which you don't know, anechoic chamber is like those big, like big soundproof rooms, they got the big foam wedges on the wall and all that
So
kind of
that's
stuff.
the thing where they're like, you can't spend more than 15 minutes in there because you go insane.
Well, so and I'd heard that, and I was like, okay, so that's an interesting element, and I wanted to find out if that was true. And the professor, that let me use it, he's like, no, that's crazy, like he's like, I spend hours and hours in here, and I've never gone insane, And so
was he
wearing his
was
shoes.
he normal?
I mean, he did seem. I mean, all professors seem, a little strange. I guess you have to be to specialize in something like that. But no, he seemed pretty normal. And I spent a good, several hours in there, like filming and just sitting and trying to find out, like, do I feel like I'm going crazy? What does actually silence feel like, and all that kind of stuff. And that was all part of the video. And then I went and traveled to different places looking for it. And so Big Bend, Texas, was where I found. I feel like I went. I'm sure that I went 24 hours without hearing any type of aircraft fly overhead. And it was right after sunset, right before the crickets started chirping, that I felt like I experienced silence that was even more silent than the anechoic chamber. And I had a decibel meter that I bought, like a cheap decibel meter that I bought off of like Amazon or something like that. And I remember in the anechoic chamber, like I can't remember exactly, but it was reading something like right at the edge of what the decibel meter could even pick up, could even register. And then when I took it to Big Bend, and that window between sunset and the crickets chirping, it like bottomed out completely and wouldn't even, like the numbers weren't even moving and anything like that. And so that was where I felt like I experienced true silence. And it was kind of like this passion project, because I was spending all that time trying to film, and I was constantly getting frustrated with airplanes, and then I just wanted to find out, like, is there any place left in the world? Surely there is in the world, but in the United States, because that was accessible to me. And so I did all that big traveling, spent quite a bit of money, and it did not do well. I think to this day, it has done, I want to say somewhere between 200 and 250,000 views, but it grew very slowly over time. And even now, if I was doing that video today, I would hope that it was going to do more than that. And so.
And is 250,000 views, did that at least offset your cost of travel, or did you lose money on that?
I think I lost some money on that particular video. Yeah. And so maybe over the course of time, I haven't looked to see how much money that video has made through AdSense, but there was not a sponsor on it, so I didn't have the added benefit. There wasn't really any type of gear that I was recommending, and so I wasn't getting affiliate sales off of that video. And so the only money I was making off of that video was Google AdSense money, and especially at the time, was not a big source of income for me, So affiliate sales and sponsors and stuff like that was a bigger source of income. And so, yeah, I do think that video lost money. I'm sorry? $250,000, yeah.
Yeah. And I've got some terminology here. I don't know if this is consistent with what you were discovering.
Yeah, refresh my memory.
When an organization officially protects or certifies one of these regions, it's called a quiet park or an acoustic sanctuary.
Oh, I like acoustic sanctuary.
Yeah.
Sanctuary.
That is a fancy name for it.
I remember thinking on the JMT, it felt so remote in every single way, except it's the only time I have actually noticed the planes were incessant, many every single day, and so loud. I think they were just echoing off all the granite. Yeah. But it was so many planes every day, and it did bother me.
Yeah. Well, and now, having lived here for the last few years, I believe the issue with the Holy Cross Wilderness is that it's the main exit path from Denver International. So as any plane is leaving Denver International to go anywhere west, they're basically flying straight over the Holy Cross Wilderness, which is where I was.
So I feel like I cannot think, because I've spent a lot of time in the Holy Cross Wilderness, and I do not remember the planes there. Now I want to go back, and I feel like you've ruined it for me.
And so that was the interesting thing about this, is that, so my wife and I, when I flew to Seattle to do that part of the video, she came with me. And she didn't go hiking with me, but she stayed there. And we were just walking around a city park there in Seattle, and we're just sitting and enjoying the beautiful city park there. And I'm just hearing airplane, and I would say to her, like, you hear that? Another airplane. And I'd say, you hear that? Another airplane. And after, I don't know, maybe I did like 5 airplanes, she put her arm on my knee and said, don't ruin this for me like you've ruined it for yourself. And that was the big thing that I took away from that, is I really did feel like I ruined the wilderness for myself, because there is a certain amount that you just tune out, those noises. they just kind of fall into the background.
Are you still
And-
picking up every airplane now?
Yes, and I've also decided now, like I won't stop recording as much as I used to, because I've also noticed it in other people's videos, and sometimes I'll leave a comment. I'll be like, "Oh man, that airplane, at minute 3."
You're leaving
3 minutes.
timestamps for people.
Yeah, like that airplane, and then the person will respond and be like, I never even heard that, like even in the recording I didn't hear it, and so I've realized, okay, maybe people are not as attuned to it as I am, and so it can take a long time from the first moment you hear an airplane until you don't hear it anymore. I mean, we're talking like 5-10 minutes sometimes. And so sometimes I'm just like, nobody's even going to hear it anyways. I'm just going to go ahead and record.
Yeah. So what was your subjective experience in Big Bend National Park where you had like that true silent experience? Like, did you feel any different in that moment?
Did you go insane?
I did not go insane, but I remember thinking this is something to treasure. And so it was beautiful. I think it was sometime around April or something like that, which is a really great time to be in Big Bend National Park. Big Bend is a very hot park. So it was, and then once the sun goes down, the temperatures get amazing. And so it was like, it was all these things like culminating, where the sun was setting, the temperatures were perfect. I was by myself, all sounds disappeared, and I'm just standing there just kind of soaking it all in. And it really did feel special and rare. Elusive even. And it was like, man, like this is something that most people are never going to experience. Quiet that is so quiet, it's quieter than an anechoic chamber that they spent millions of dollars building to try to isolate all the sounds that we as humans make. And so it was a very special experience. Again, short-lived. But again, I was hearing natural sounds all the time, and people get confused. I was not trying to achieve no sound at all. I was just trying to achieve no man-made sound. But the fact that I did get no sound at all felt like icing on the cake. And so I was happy just hiking for 24 hours and not hearing a plane. But then when everything quieted down, it was like, okay, like this is special.
One of your more fun videos, at least in my perspective, was where you built a Quinzee. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, I believe so.
First of all, I want to know the science that you unearthed in that video, and also what is a Quinzee?
So Quinzee is basically like an igloo, except it's built differently. And so you have a Quinzee, you have a snow cave, and you have an igloo, and they are all basically the same thing, but it's just different ways that you approach them. And so an igloo, you make blocks out of snow and you build it up above the snow. A snow cave, you dig into like a snow bank that is already there, that's already existing, and you make a shelter that way. So Quinzee is kind of in between the two. You pile up snow big enough that you can then burrow into it and make a snow cave. And I was wanting to do a video that was kind of talking about the thermodynamics of how snow can keep you warm, because I thought that's a very interesting, doesn't seem like it's something it should be able to do, but it certainly does, and it can keep you really, really warm. And so I was wanting to do a video that's talking about how the science allows that to happen. And I did not have any faith that I was going to be able to build an igloo, and so especially in, a couple of nights time, whatever. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to build a Quinzee. And so piled up all the snow and dug into and it was the first time I'd ever built anything like that, but dug into the snow and made a nice little snow shelter, and was able to talk about the science of it and show that, that you can have, below freezing temperatures outside, and you can have a nice balmy, like 40 degrees inside these snow shelters.
Were you surprised when you woke up the next morning and realized that the temperature difference was actually that extreme?
No, I was not surprised, because I knew that was something that, I knew that survivalists and stuff like that would build snow caves in order to, live in that way, to survive in those situations and stuff like that. And I knew that, Inuit people would build Inuit people would build igloos in order to stay warm and all that kind of stuff. So I knew that it would work, and I just wanted to show it work and talk about the science behind it.
How long did it take you to build?
It took a good 2 days.
Yeah.
And I actually lost my glasses in the process. And so I had taken my glasses off in the daytime to to put on sunglasses because snow blindness is a real thing. And I put them in a pocket, and then later that day I'd gotten into that. It was a chest pocket. I'd gotten into that pocket and forgotten to zip it back up. And so at some point, either while I was hiking or while I was building the Quinzee, they fell out of my pocket, and then I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't have my glasses. And so I had to drive back home and get a second pair of glasses and come back out to do the video and finish everything out. And then hiked back later in the summertime after all the snow was gone and actually found my glasses. They were a little worse for wear, but they were out there.
Yeah. Are you following like a tutorial as you're digging out, or are you just letting your intuition? Like, I imagine there's got to be more than just like digging a hole into a bank of snow to do this properly.
Yeah, so one of the things you want to be careful about is you don't want to make your walls too thin, because then like everything will collapse. And that was a real fear for me, was being out there in in a Quinzee by myself and it collapsing on top of me, and suffocating in snow is also a very real thing. And like nobody, my wife I'd be long dead before she was like, well, he didn't come home when he said he was, and all that kind of stuff. And so I did do quite a bit of research about the techniques and all that kind of stuff. And so one of the techniques that you use to make sure that you get the wall thickness right is you pile up this big mound of snow, and then you get a bunch of twigs that are all about a foot long. You break them all off to about a foot long, and you shove those into the outside of the snow mound that you make. So then when you're digging, if you run into a stick, you're like, oh, I'm a foot from the outside wall, and so now I need to stop digging here. And then you keep digging other places until you get that. And there was a few places where I guess I didn't get a stick, placed properly or something like that, where I did get thin enough that I started to see light coming through, and I was like, okay, I need to stop digging here because light's coming through, and I'm worried, and how thick of a snow wall does it need to be before light doesn't come through? I have no idea.
Yeah.
So I was just like, all right, if you can see the daylight, it's getting a little too thin for my taste.
Yeah.
Is it something you would ever do again, or was it just the novelty of doing it for a video?
So I actually did go back earlier this year, and I built an Igloo because I wanted to do a test between insulated tents. And so it seemed like there for a little while, like insulated tents were a technology that was on the market, and now it seems like they've gone away. And so I came up with this idea before the technology had really gone away, but wanted to see like what is actually warmer, like technology, it's like a tent with like built-in insulation and all this kind of stuff, or an igloo. And so I bought an igloo building jig off the internet that basically makes sure that you are building it all properly, and there's some science to the is it catenary, I think is the term. And so it's basically the arch, the St. Louis arch, is a catenary shape, and so that's like the most stable natural forming shape in nature. And even though that obviously isn't natural. And so you have to build an igloo in sort of that shape in order to distribute all the weight and all that kind of stuff in order for it to be able to stand up. And Inuit people will actually cut snow blocks from the snow pack, and then they will build those, I did not do that because it takes a very specific type of snow that tends to form mostly in the Arctic Circle. And Colorado snow is just too fluffy and powdery and all that kind of stuff. And so this jig that I bought was, it was advertised as you can build an igloo in any type of snow. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to find out.
It's not faith put in that.
Yeah, exactly. and again, probably the biggest concern was not necessarily, at that point, it was like, okay, am I going to get out there and it's not going to work? And then the video basically is dead on arrival.
I feel like you'd be dead on arrival. I feel like that's worse to collapse on you than the Quinzee.
Well, I figure if it goes up enough that I actually get it built, then it's going to work. But if I can't even get it started, then that's what I was worried about. And so
is this kit just giving you the frame to actually make the igloo, or is it also helping you like form the blocks for the?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a really interesting tool, and so it's got this curved, basically, I'm almost like building a sandcastle, and so you got like this curved jig that you put in there, and it's got a pole that goes down to a center spot that you stake into the snow, and so then it follows, a perfect circle around, and it's got this articulating system on it that is positioning the block at the exact angle, and as it's coming along, you have to adjust it's got all these adjustments on the pole so that you're coming in at the exact perfect angle. It's shortening the pole at the exact perfect angle to make that catenary shape. as you build it up. And so it just, you're just basically making all these adjustments. You got to know when to make the adjustments. It's all there in the instructions. I was also worried about that. I was like, am I even going to be able to figure out this machine, as I'm out here building this thing? Or again, is the video dead on arrival? But yeah, so I built the Igloo and was able to spend the night there and tested it compared to the insulated tent. And I believe the Igloo, if I remember correctly, again, I forget all the details, but I believe the Igloo was marginally better than the insulated tent, but it was better.
Yeah.
And so
maybe that's why the tents have
Which
disappeared.
The insulated tent, I mean, it's super expensive, but it's got thin insulation, but then it's designed to go inside of another tent because it in and of itself is not waterproof on the outside. And so you got like a double layer tent, which tents already make it, 10 degrees warmer-ish, if you're sleeping inside a tent than if you're just cowboy camping. And so then you got the double layer of the tent plus the insulation. And I was like, it's really got a lot that it's going for. And so but it was also, I think I was carrying something like 20 pounds in just tents in order to, I've dragged them in on a pulk, because I wasn't going to carry that in a backpack. And so it was like, okay, do you spend, basically all day making this Igloo, or do you carry the 20 pounds of this tent? Which one is better? You decide, what you want to do.
Now, surely your kids were into the Igloo Quinzee content. Like, that's got to be...
Well, they didn't get to go with me.
Okay.
And so they were interested in it, but they didn't get to come and experience or anything like that.
Are they mad about that? Like, Dad, bring me to the
no,
fucking Igloo.
I think they're probably used to it now. And again, so I'm not like they're telling them, like, oh yeah, I'm doing a Quinzee video this week, or anything like that. And so, and I almost brought this up earlier when we were talking about my son. He's the one that's the most interested, but because he's got age restrictions on his iPad, YouTube asks you every video you upload. It says, "Is this made for kids?" And I always say no, even though there's nothing that's, not kid-friendly about the video. I always say no because there's so much more that YouTube makes you go through in order to, I guess, certify your video as kid-friendly. And it's just, kids probably aren't interested to begin with.
Yeah.
So I just say no. And so as a result of that, he doesn't get it on his locked down YouTube account, So they're like, well, it's not made for kids, so you can't have it. And so if he does see a video, it's like years old, that YouTube finally is like, okay, it's probably safe. We've had enough people come through or whatever. And so he doesn't get to see them unless he's watching it on my device or watching in the living room on the TV. And so he doesn't get to see them as much as he probably would want to.
Yeah. Back to the subject of rain gear. So now that we're in a post-PFAS world, what are you using for rain gear?
So I use a lot of different things, and I jump around from time to time, but probably the thing that I settled on the most was Fahal Raven. So Fahal Raven had some really good stuff that they were PFAS free for a very long time, and were one of the first brands that I knew of that were actively trying to be PFAS free. I've tried some jackets from Paramo. I got a lot of people that were trying to get me to try Paramo. Paramo is associated in one way or another with Nick Wax, and Nick Wax has been PFAS free from the very beginning. They've never used PFAS in any of their products.
Oh wow!
And so Paramo uses Nick Wax, industrial Nick Wax DWR treatments, and so they've been PFAS free. I didn't like the way that their jacket functions. I never did a video on it or anything like that. But I didn't like the way that their jacket fit or the way that it functioned. It's very heavy. It's double layered, lots of different things like that. And so mostly what I've been using is Fahal Raven. I'm also a big proponent for umbrellas and things like that, just because, again, I'm not sure that any membrane-based rain gear is going to work to the extent that they really try to advertise it. And a lot of that comes down to the science of it, and that you need a difference in humidity outside the jacket from inside the jacket in order for that moisture to breathe through the jacket. And when it's actively raining, you're at almost 100% humidity guaranteed, or you got a very high amount of humidity. So you really have to work up a big sweat, saying that if it's 80 or 90% humidity outside in the rain, you basically have to work up enough sweat that you're created a 100% humidity inside the jacket before you're going to get any breathing to happen. Mm-hmm. And so really what you need is ventilation in my mind. And that's pit zips and unzipping, and ventilation and all kinds of different places. And so that's really what I focus on whenever I'm looking for a jacket of any type. Is I'm like, what's the ventilation like? And that's what I'm trying to focus on. And that's one of the things that I really thought I'd like Paramo. And a lot of people said you need to try Paramo because they focus a lot on ventilation. It's other elements that I didn't like about their jackets.
When you try a piece of gear and you don't love it, how do you manage kind of this moral responsibility you have of having this huge audience and there's a chance that you just didn't like it because it wasn't for you, versus telling this massive audience, I didn't like it, knowing people are going to interpret that as it's a bad product?
Yeah, so I think it was MK, what's his name? The big tech YouTuber that does all the tech reviews and stuff like that.
Oh.
MKBHD, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
Is his name or his channel name. He said one time he got in some, he did a negative review of an electric car a couple years back, and it got a lot of attention because they were like, basically, they were accusing him of, you tanked this company by your negative review. And he said, look, picking things to review is an art form, and you're not just going to review anything because some people are probably not interested in that. And I have learned that over the years is that if you just go and pick, the newest tint from Big Agnes, and you're like, I'm going to do a review of the new tint from Big Agnes, the only people that are going to be interested in that are people that are thinking they might buy a Big Agnes tent. And they're like, oh, I think I like the Big Agnes. I'm going to go see if I can find some reviews on it. And so those are the only people you're going to get to watch those videos. And so you really need to find things that, okay, this has an interest level that is beyond someone that has just narrowed it down to a few pieces of gear and they're trying to decide which one they want to get. And so finding things to review or, something like that with like the Paramo jacket, I think it could have been a really interesting piece of content because Paramo had just barely broken into the United States. A lot of people didn't know who they were or that they even existed. And if I was really going to love it, I thought it was going to be a really interesting piece of content where people are like, oh, like here's something that's doing better than everything else out there, and it's just now come onto the market. But as a result of me going out and being like, hey, this thing that you've never heard of is not, I just don't like it very much. That's just not that interesting of a piece of content. And so if it was, a really big brand, like everyone's like, oh yeah, this is the newest thing and everyone's talking about it. And I'm like, I don't like it because of this. That's an interesting piece of content. And so you put that out and I think people would watch it. And so a lot of it, for better or for worse, because I think a lot of people would rather, you just put out, all content that you possibly can so that anybody that's looking to try to make any decision on any piece of gear has that content. But that's just unsustainable, to be able to do that. And so you gotta pick and choose. You gotta lean into that art form of finding the content that is going to be interesting. And sometimes that's just interesting to me. So like maybe the silence disappearing. That's interesting to me. I want to talk about that. I'm going to make a video about that, whether people watch it or not. Or is it going to be interesting to a lot of people? And
I guess my question is, even if it's interesting content, do you ever feel like you don't want to say negative things about a brand? Like, do you ever feel responsible for the weight of your opinion?
No, I don't. And that's another thing so MKBHD, he had that issue with that car company where he basically did this negative review of this electric car, and then the company went bankrupt like shortly after that. And everyone was like, you made them go bankrupt, you made them go bankrupt. And he put out a response. He was like, I may have accelerated the demise of this company, but I did not cause it. Them putting out bad products caused it. And so it was going to happen at some point because the product was just so bad. I just brought attention to it and maybe accelerated a little bit. And so I think I feel that way too. And maybe I don't know, maybe I'm naive about how much influence I have. But sometimes I'm like, I don't know that, are there that many people out there that are making decisions based off exactly what I'm saying? Or is it a conglomerate of, a lot of different YouTubers and reviewers and things like that? And so that's what I would say about that.
How many gear pitches do you get over a week or a month or whatever time span?
I don't fully know because I've given my email address to an assistant who answers all the emails. And so she only sends me things that she thinks, okay, you're going to be interested in this. And so there are probably quite a few pitches. I do see the inbox from time to time, and so every once in a while I just open it up and I just skim through, like, okay, what's happening here. But I really rely on her to be like, here's something that you want to put your eyes on. And so I don't know for sure, but I do think that it's probably several a day.
Yeah.
I think I get quite a few a day.
What percentage of those pre-filtered pitches do you think, oh, yes, she's right, I have to do something for this?
I mean, it's probably a very small amount, So, I mean, usually I will hear about it through some other means rather than just a pitch, So, I mean, because pitches they're sales pitches, first and foremost. And so that everyone's always trying to think of, like, oh, this is the most interesting thing. And so is that piece of gear actually going to be interesting? I'm not sure. If I've heard about it some other way, or if it's come onto my radar some other way, then I'm like, okay, I do think that that's interesting.
Yeah.
And I think one piece of gear that probably falls in that category was the, I don't know if you've seen I think it's Valcouse is how it's said, the ventilation systems. And so it's like this aftermarket back. It's like if you get a backpack that doesn't have good back ventilation, you can put this Valcouse ventilation system on there, and you get all you get like the benefits of having
like a suspension frame.
Yeah, suspension frame that it's added after the fact,
Yeah.
so you can add it to any backpack. And so I did a video where I was messing with one of those and did really poorly because I didn't read any of the instructions or watch any videos about it, and I just was like, throw it in my pack and I'm taking it on this backpacking trip. And so I didn't apply it properly and all that kind of stuff, but it was something that I was like, oh, this is an interesting piece of gear that I think people are going to be interested in. And I do think that, the video got some good traction. So
yeah. I'm interested, you mentioned that you pass all of the keys to the castle to an assistant to kind of filter everything. At what point did you do that, and how much cognitive free space did that give you?
Oh gosh. I mean, so for some time I've realized, I do most everything myself. I did recently, last year, I hired an editor for a short time, and then I didn't fire him, but I guess I put him on leave for a little bit while my wife went through her cancer struggles, her cancer battle. And so then just now recently I've picked him back up to kind of just allow me to have more time with my family. But everything else I've done myself from the beginning. And so I answered all the emails, I wrote the videos, I filmed the videos, I edited the videos, I made the thumbnails, I did all that myself, and still do quite a bit of that. And even with my editor, sometimes he'll get something and he'll get it all edited. He's like, okay, I think it's done. And I get in there and I mess with it quite a bit, for like pretty much the better part of a day. I'll mess with his edit on top of that. And so I do a lot of that myself, but I did realize at some point, like, something's going to have to give. And I'm just really bad at email to begin with. And so I'm bad at answering emails. I'm bad at responding to emails. Sometimes I'll respond in my brain, and then my brain is like, oh yeah, you took care of that, check it off the list. And I never actually hit send, or whatever. And so people are like, hey, do you even get this email, And I'm like, oh yes, I'm so sorry. And so I knew that was not a strong suit for me, and that I needed someone that was like, okay, you need to be paying attention to this, and then if I don't, they come back and say, did you pay attention to that like I told you to? No, you need to pay attention to this. And so she hounds me a little bit and says, okay, like, did you ever respond to that, or did you ever do whatever you needed to do for that and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
I also would be remiss if we have someone whose job is gear sitting here. You can interpret this any way you want, but what are your 3 favorite pieces of gear?
Oh, goodness. And so, I don't know. I try not to pick favorites, so to speak, but there are pieces of gear that end up in my pack over and over and over again. And probably the biggest one, not in terms of actual physical size, obviously, but the one that comes to mind most readily is the Z-Packs Plex Solo. Mm-hmm. I love that tent. And so it is always the one that I'm thinking, okay, that's the tent that I'm taking. Hands down, I'm always taking that tent. I also tend to lean towards, which this is not intentional that these are both Z-Packs, but the Z-Packs Arc Haul is a backpack that I tend to carry quite a bit. I really like the fact that it feels more like a full-featured pack, but it is super lightweight. And so it's got back ventilation, it's got load lifter straps, it's got all those things, and it weighs something like, I can't remember, but I think it's like 15 ounces or something like that. It's ridiculously light. And so I love those 2 pieces of gear. And And then my ZenBivy sleep system is probably the other one that it is just hands down. And ZenBivy, I probably do have to say, ZenBivy has sponsored some videos in the past, but and I get a lot of accusations like, well, you only like that because they sponsor some videos. I'm like, no, I took them as a sponsor because I loved their product and wanted to talk more about it.
I tried their sleep system for the first time for an article semi-recently, and I expected it to feel a little gimmicky. Dude.
It's so good, right?
So good.
And that's the thing. And so you get accusations about that because so many people are realizing that, and you're getting a lot of people talking about it. And so then the people that are skeptics are like,
feels like a marketing campaign.
It's just advertising. ZenBivy's paying these people. And for a long time, to the best of my knowledge, I was the only YouTuber that I knew of that ZenBivy was doing a sponsorship deal with. And so I'm like, it's not marketing. Like, even if you don't believe me, just go believe all the other people out there that are talking about it, because it really is a superior system.
Yeah.
And I love it.
I do the same thing. I will hound brands that don't do advertising traditionally, because it's like, I know we can sell a lot of your product because I fucking love your product so much. Like, I'd rather give you a discount and sell this to the audience because I can so authentically endorse this. Oh gosh, I lost my question. Oh, my question. Because you are such a gearhead, as Kay mentioned, where are you going to source your gear knowledge? Like, I know that you've got your finger on the pulse with the thru hiking world. You're at AT and PCT trail days. Like, how much of that versus Reddit versus, like, where are you picking up your gear cues?
Is it the Trek gear reviews?
Sometimes, actually. I think I have used some of the surveys, some of the thru hiker surveys and stuff like that. I think I've done some videos that have referenced those and things like that. I actually feel a little bit out of the loop because I stepped back over the course of this last year, and I was not making as many gear videos. And so, like, I would normally do, at the beginning of the year, I would do, like the new gear of, 2026 or whatever. And then at the end of the year, I would do it again. And I'd say, okay, this is what has come out even since the last video. And so I was doing that every year since the channel was born. And then I didn't do that for the first time these last, I guess, for 2025 and 2026. I may have done one early 2025. I didn't do the end of the year. And so I actually feel like I've lost a little bit of the pulse on that. There are some new pieces of gear that I am aware of, like what is the name of the new Big Agnes tents?
Ridgeline.
The Ridgeline, and what's the other one? It's the
freestanding, or they have one freestanding and one trekking pole tent coming out.
Yeah, and so I just did a video with the freestanding, and now I can't even remember the name. But I knew that those tents were out there. I know that
the String Ridge, is that one of them?
String Ridge, yes.
String Ridge. So no, there's like a pitch pine too, right?
Pitch pine and String Ridge. I think are the two.
Yeah, that's what it is.
There's the VST as well.
Yeah, so I think they're both called VST.
Okay.
But again, I don't know, because I will feel a little bit out of the loop. So don't take my word on it.
Yeah.
But I know, like, that's there. I know that Mountain Hardware had a new pack that I was really interested in. I have not yet to this day. I have not laid hands on it. I know that Gossamer Gear has the free tent, which is intriguing to me. That. But again, I haven't seen that in person either, and a lot of that is because I'm just now starting to get back into the swing of things, and again, I'm looking at all this gear. Typically, I'm looking at this gear as it comes through, but then I'm trying to decide on top of that, is this interesting enough to make a video about it, or is there a way that I can incorporate this into a more interesting storyline?
Yeah.
And so,
but like, how are you even picking up like what should be in your radar to begin with? Like, is Reddit more standard gear reviews, other YouTubers? Like, is there a single source that you find to be the most fruitful?
I don't tend to watch a lot of other YouTubers that are in the outdoor backpacking niche because, and this is probably less likely to happen now as when I was first doing the channel, but I didn't want their content to influence my content. I didn't want to be like, oh, I'm saying this because Justin, who's a really good friend of mine, said that or whatever, But I am in a group of other YouTubers that are all in the niche, and I'll go in, especially if I'm thinking about making a, like the new gear type video. I'll be like, all right, so what do you guys, what's new? What have you guys heard? What am I leaving out? Like this is the list that I've come up with. Is there anything that I'm missing? And so I will talk to other people that kind of have their hand on the pulse, and really a lot of it is, it does come from a little bit from YouTube. It comes from like working with retailers like Garage Grown Gear. Garage Grown Gear is really good. They sponsored videos for a long time, but we've taken a break from sponsorship because of the health issues with my family. No other reason. but they were always really great about finding new and obscure gear, and they're featuring it on their, and so a lot of times I would hear about it from Lloyd from Garage Door Gear, and he'd be like, oh yeah, have you seen this? I'm like, no, like, where did you even find these people? Like, but this thing's awesome, like, send me one, or ask them if they'll send me one, and stuff like that. And so it just comes through a lot of different avenues, and
Yeah.
And again, just trying to find those pieces of gear that I think are going to be the most interesting.
Yeah.
One of my fears as a gear reviewer is that I will put something out and I'll have something listed as a con that turns out to just be user error, because
Yes.
people are not shy about letting you know that.
Yes.
Is that something that group of creators kind of helps you? Will you send a video and be like, I didn't like this about it. Is that me? Am I doing it wrong? Or is that something in the system?
I usually won't send a video, but I will say, like, hey, have you guys tried, whatever? And so I actually loved the Big Agnes tents. Like, I thought, like, when I first got it and slept in it and all that kind of stuff, I sent a picture to some friends, and I was like, oh man, I love this tent. And I think it was Justin for Justin Outdoors. Like, really, I just did a negative review on that tent,
Really?
and I hadn't seen it, and I was like, well, tell me what you didn't like about it. And so the issue that he found with it was, so it's a single wall tent, and on a single wall tent, you're going to have condensation issues no matter what.
Was he testing the freestanding or the non-freestanding?
I think it was
one?
the freestanding. Yeah.
Okay.
So I haven't gotten my hands on the non-freestanding.
I just tried that one and I loved it.
So I loved it too,
So-
but here's the issue. And when Justin pointed this out to me, I was like, oh, this does make sense. So he took it out in some really humid conditions. The mesh at the bottom that needs to let all that condensation drip out is completely vertical. And so on most tents, like most single wall tents, trekking pole tents, it's pulled in to almost a perpendicular angle from the wall. And so when the water hits it, it goes straight through the mesh and out of the tent. But because the mesh on the VST tents is straight vertical, the condensation just runs down the mesh and doesn't go out it and into the bathtub floor of the tent. And so you get pooling in very humid conditions.
Interesting.
And I've only slept in it a couple times now, and both the second time I actually thought I was going to have condensation issues, but the first time it was very dry and had no condensation at all. And so I haven't even experienced what Justin has experienced, but I can see, like, just looking at it now that he said it, because I think I had cell service the first night I was in it, and so I was like, messaging him or something like that, and I was like, tell me what you don't like about it, and then I'm like sitting there looking and like, yeah, I can see how that would how that might
That's so
that might
interesting.
happen with that
That's
condensation.
always the thing I find so frustrating about gear reviews is you can test it as thoroughly as you think. And then, yeah, same, all my reviews I do, for the most part, it's in Colorado, and that just has a certain ecosystem to it. It's probably really good at dealing with high winds, but yeah, the condensation issue, I never would have thought about it.
I just took that tent to the fog belt of California. Should be a very humid area. I had no condensation issues with it at all, and so I don't know where Justin was, but he had more condensation than the fog belt of California, but which can happen. So
Where'd you test it?
Chicago Basin.
Hmm.
So took the Silverton train and dropped me off.
Yeah.
yeah,
About a quarter mile from the top I wanted to give up, but
I'm assuming no condensation issues. for
no
you?
condensation issues.
Yeah.
My issue with it is it's a freestanding tent, and I hate to even say this out loud because I've spent one night in it, and so this might just be user error. I hate when it's a freestanding tent that still kind of requires stakes to pitch.
Yeah. I think technically that's semi-freestanding because
Yes.
of that, but
Yes.
the definition.
But it needed more stakes than I will allow 2 stakes. I will give you each vestibule
Yeah.
before I start to complain. I think it took 4
Uh-huh.
or
Yeah.
something where at a point.
Yeah.
I don't want to carry stakes and the temples.
Sure.
yeah. No, I don't think that's human error. I think it is designed around
Okay.
being staked out. It is just one step up from a trekking pole tent.
Okay, I said it took 4. I think it took 6. I just didn't want to put my foot in my mouth.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how many stakes, but it takes quite a few.
It took a lot of stakes.
But as someone that typically brings trekking pole tents, it really didn't, it didn't feel like a big deal to me.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I loved it. My overall verdict was
Yeah.
great.
I think based on timing, this has to be the last subject that we touch on, but this one made me giggle quite a bit watching you test this, is mesh base layers, which is basically you wearing fishnet as a base layer.
Yes. Yeah.
One, please just run us through the science of like how that is potentially a superior base layer. And I'm also curious, is this something that you're using in your day-to-day, or does the aesthetic optics outweigh any functional improvements?
Yeah, so that is another one of those items I was like, okay, this is an interesting piece of gear. And so even people that are not in the market for a base layer are going to find this interesting. And so I knew immediately that I wanted to do something with it. And there was quite a bit of, there were other, I think I mentioned some of this in my video. There were other YouTubers that had done videos about it. And so I wanted to do a video about it. I want to talk about the science about it a little bit because it does seem counterintuitive that a garment with a bunch of holes in it is going to be warmer than a garment that doesn't have holes in it. But it is those holes that actually help make it warmer, because all insulation that we would use in the backcountry is basically, it all works off of trapping air. And that's the only way that you're going to trap heat is by trapping small little air pockets. And so a lot of that, uses down or synthetic insulation, and it's just basically, just has a lot of places for air to get trapped inside there. But these, what they do is it only works with a layer on top of it. And so it is not a standalone layer. You have to have that on, and then you have to have like a shell or even like a fleece or something like that on top of it. And then those little mesh holes in the garment are places where air pockets will then form, and that air pocket is what is keeping you warm in that situation. And because it has that mesh, it kind of has the best of both worlds, because if you trap air really well, typically you can't breathe because you're trapping air, and breathing necessitates air moving. And so like down and fleece and things that are really good at insulating are not usually very good at breathing. But this item actually works really well at that, because it traps the air when you have that shell or whatever on top of it. But then if you open up some pit zips, all of a sudden you're letting all that air escape that was trapped in those little mesh pockets, and now you get quite a bit of breathing to happen. And so it actually is a really ingenious. I said that it was, why are we, I think my title of my video was like, why are we just now discovering this? We are not just now discovering this, but at the time it felt like the backpacking world was just discovering this, even though Norwegians have been using it for
wasn't that the Norwegian
centuries.
Military?
Yeah. It's been around, and my commenters definitely let me know that. Like this has been around since this. The angrily typing on the keyboard and all that kind of stuff. I'm like,
is that the same thought process that goes into the Alpha Direct material as well, like using some sort of gridded?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and so Alpha Direct, which I absolutely love Alpha Direct. I wear it all the time. It works in a lot in the same way. Is that it's got that nice breathability, nice and lightweight because it's got so many holes in it, but it's allowing all that insulation. I mean, it's allowing to trap all that air to provide insulation.
How often do you know when you're coming up with a title for one of your videos that it's just going to piss people off?
Oh, everything's going to piss somebody off.
Yeah.
It's like if you're trying to please everybody, you're pleasing nobody. That kind of deal. But I will go through lots of different iterations of titles, because I'm a firm believer that the thumbnail and the title is like 50% or more of the video. It doesn't matter how great of a video you got, if nobody clicks on it, nobody knows that it's a great video. And so that's the marketing, is what I call that. Marketing the video is the thumbnail and the title. And no matter how much time I spend coming up with a title or a thumbnail for a video, it's almost never the best thumbnail or title for that video. And it takes publishing it and seeing it not doing the potential that I think the video has before my brain starts going, okay, how could this be different? How could this be better? How could you market this better? And then you're already, so ahead of time you come up with a thumbnail and a title, and a lot of times I like to do that first, and then that influences the video, because as soon as somebody clicks on it, you want them to know, okay, you clicked on this. This was not a mistake clicking on this. And so the very first part of the video then kind of leads, it just follows suit for what the thumbnail and title did. And you can write that if you come up with a thumbnail and title first. But then afterwards, like if that thumbnail and title is just miserably failing, then you got to be like, okay, what did I say? And how can I come up with a title that still fits what I'm saying in the video, but is more interesting and intriguing for people to click on? And so,
are you ABC testing all of your videos, like with
yes,
titles?
Yeah,
and
multiple
thumbnails?
times. So I'll do an ABC test. It will come through, one will win, and then I take that one and I put it with two others and I do it again, and that one will, and if that one wins again, then and a lot of times the one that I like the least is winning, and like that can't be the winner. Like we got to try something different, something's got to be better, you know. But yeah, no, I'm doing it multiple times. It is a rare video when the very first set of A/B tests is the final thumbnail on the video.
Wow.
Interesting.
I'm sure you can't be where you are today if you don't have a thick skin to comment online. Has there ever been a response to a video or a title that actually genuinely got under your skin?
Only if I feel like I made a mistake.
Oh,
And
I
so,
get that.
And so if I am questioning whether or not I was accurate or correct, then it gets to me. If it's not, then a lot of times I just, and I've learned over the years, people are stupid. Not everybody, obviously, but it's especially people that want to leave negative comments. I don't know. It just seems like a lot of them are stupid, And so like there's one that, and sometimes I like to respond to them, and it's probably not the most healthiest thing to respond to them, but I like to get a little sarcastic with them and respond. And so I just did a video where I was talking about the tallest tree in the world, which is forbidden to visit, 6 months in prison and $5,000 fine if you're caught hiking within like a 3-mile radius of it. And so I thought, that's interesting. I want to do a video. And so I walked up to the border.
I thought you were about to say you walked up to the tree.
No. I walked up to the forbidden border, which is in the shape of a pentagon. And I think there's a creator that I is a big influence on me that termed that the forbidden pentagon. So I'm like, all right, I'm here at the forbidden pentagon. I'm hiking outside the forbidden pentagon. Here's why it's forbidden, and here's the consequences and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm doing this whole video about how you shouldn't be hiking to this tree, and that and I'm even saying I'm outside it. And I get all these comments that are like, well, it's forbidden, and why'd you go in there? And then you put it on YouTube. What an idiot. I'm like, I'm the idiot? Like, I didn't do that. They're like, you got to be stupid to think that I did that. Because
a lack of
that
listening
that would be the dumbest thing in the world for me to break the law and then put a video out about
incriminate yourself.
breaking the law. Yeah.
Cool. We could do this way longer, but based on our timeline, we can't, unfortunately. So I'm going to end with our sponsor question, which is the Stay Salty question presented by Element. Use our URL, drinklmnt.com/trek. Do you have a hottest take in the world of outdoors? Something that's maybe like an unpopular opinion or something you feel especially passionate about?
I feel very passionate about how the manliness that is connected with the outdoors. And I really like it, especially on my channel, because I talk a lot about ultralight. And so you get a lot of people that seem to go to one or two extremes. They come in, they say, what, you take all that stuff? Be a man and just take a knife. That's what real men do, is they don't take anything and they just build everything. Or they say, what, you're carrying all this light stuff? Be a man, carry some heavy stuff. And I'm like, well, which one is it? Are you a man if you take nothing, or are you a man if you carry all the heavy stuff? And so that's probably the thing that I get the most, or that I get the most passionate about, is like, it seems like, based on the comments that I get about stuff like this, that the sign of a true man is being intentionally miserable. And so whether that's I took nothing and now I'm freezing to death, or I took everything and now I'm carrying the world on my back, either way, because I'm intentionally miserable in whatever I'm doing, that means I'm a man. And I think that's ludicrous and ridiculous.
I always see it as the sign of a true man is if you did exactly what that commenter did. Then you did it right.
There you go.
Stephen, you're awesome. Let people know where they should go to keep up with you. Obviously, we talked a lot about the YouTube channel. Where is that, and any other social or other websites?
So I mean, it's mostly on YouTube, MyLifeOutdoors. You can find me just about anywhere if you Google MyLifeOutdoors. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Backpacker Radio.
Yeah, thank you. This was fun.
Great to meet you.
To the Trek propaganda portion of today's show. Doing a fun little twist here. You write so much content for the Trek, but you're going to feature an article that you didn't write, even though the first name is a name that you share.
Yes, you thought I wrote it.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I was stoked to see this come across my newsfeed. It's by Jackson Mauser, and it's how to get from Denver to Waterton Canyon in under $30 in 4 hours. We've both hiked the CT, and I think we both probably had to figure out logistically how to get to Waterton Canyon. You see it in the Facebook groups all the time, people asking for rides.
Quick aside was, because I live here, my logistics are a little bit different, but I just Ubered to Waterton Canyon from my house, and that when I got there, I realized that Waterton Canyon was closed. I forget the reason behind it.
Oh, sometimes they close it, and then there's that alternate starting terminus. Oh, God.
So I got dropped off there without knowing like what the fuck was going on. Finally, I think I called the CTF, and they explained it to me, and they told me where the alternate was, and there was a map posted there. But I ended up hitching from Waterton Canyon to, I think, is it Staunton State Park?
Oh, I'm not going to know it, but I know there is some other.
Yeah. I will say that alternate start, because I've now since done Waterton Canyon also. Waterton Canyon is cool because like you're basically guaranteed to see the bighorn sheep.
Oh, yeah.
That part's cool, but the hike itself is very boring.
Yes. I will say, though, it was my first ever through hike, and being able to start on 6 miles of just basically flat,
Yeah.
it did it for the nerves. That
Sure.
was so nice.
It is bonus miles for sure.
It was nice to just ease into it and be like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah. Roxborough State Park, that's the alternate start. I thought the Roxborough alternate start was way better.
I believe that because, I mean, you're walking by Denver water
Yeah.
infrastructure the whole time in Waterton.
And that's the only time I've been to that state park, but I was really impressed by it. It's in Littleton. I remember having kind of like a Red Rocks-esque feel to it. So if you're interested in just an alternate start to the CT, I definitely recommend that.
If you're interested in Waterton, you can get there public transportation.
Yeah, right.
No trail angels required.
I'm unpropagandaing the propaganda, so I'll let you take it from here, but I had to offer that aside.
I think anyone who's flown to Denver knows that the airport is pretty not ideally placed. It's very out of the way. So he breaks down how you can get all the way from the airport to Waterton Canyon. And I know 4 hours sounds bad. If you drive, it's probably going to take 2 anyway. So it's not that much more of a lift. But I think it's really great. It's really cheap. It uses the train. There is an Uber involved, but only for the final 5 miles. And it drops you off at the trailhead. So if you fly in and want to start the trail the same day, this is a really great option, and you don't have to rely on trail angels or hounding people in the Facebook group to go drop you off.
Love that. An incredibly practical and niche hack for our hiker trash audience.
Yeah.
The other article I want to feature is by another name that you've heard a lot on this podcast, Pegleg. This is 8 trail foods I never got tired of, even after 22,000 miles of backpacking. I'm just going to pick a few of the ones that stood out to me here. Is number 3 is sandwiches. I will vouch for even the worst sandwich on trail is better than the shit that you're typically eating out of your backpack. When we did the San Diego Trans-County Trail recently, we went to a gas station and like they just had like the Wonder Bread with like 1 slice of ham and 1 slice of like American cheese, and then you add a little bit of mayo to it. Like it's the most basic, disgusting sandwich that you can possibly get. Best thing I ate that day, hands
My
down.
thing, and it bites me in the ass when I'm backpacking, I don't like cold breads. So if I don't like cold tortillas or untoasted sandwiches,
You only eat toasted sandwiches?
in my real life, I only eat toasted sandwiches.
That's wild.
And I'll eat an untoasted sandwich, but if I'm feeling at all nauseous or like appetite suppressant of the hike, I cannot choke down a cold sandwich.
Interesting. I think I generally prefer hot foods, but sandwich is a category where I almost prefer it to be cold.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
I have to really ponder that one now that I'm saying it out loud, because I do love snarfs.
I think I just don't like when the bread gets gluey in my mouth.
Yeah. Does it count if the sandwich has been toasted, but then it comes down to room temperature? Like,
I would still eat that.
Does that count as a cold sandwich or a warm sandwich?
Warm sandwich.
Okay.
I would in town I need to pre-toast a bunch of sandwiches.
There you go.
And then just leave with them in my pack.
Yeah. So it's a bread consistency issue.
It's a bread consistency.
Makes sense. She also highlights crackers and cheese or jelly. And this one is probably a no-brainer to anyone who's done like significant thru hiking. But if you're new to backpacking, this might not occur to you. Is like bakery and farmers market items. Mm-hmm. Anytime you get access to like a good restaurant, especially something at a bakery that will probably keep for a day or 2, sometimes more, pack that out. That's going to be the thing that you look forward to the most out of your pack.
When I counted my expenses for the article we did on CDT budget, I think it was within $10. It was shocking, an equivalent amount on restaurants in town as I did on resupply for groceries for the whole trail.
Sure.
Because I would always just pack out a second meal from a restaurant to be my first dinner on trail.
Yeah. And that's easily always the best thing.
Because you always want to eat it.
Definitely. Yeah. It almost makes like those initial miles go by slower because you're thinking about it the entire time. The only saving grace is that you're probably leaving town pretty full.
Yeah.
But once that hunger kicks in, you're just like counting down.
Like I know I have a burrito in my backpack right now.
Yeah.
I want to get to camp.
So if you want the full list of the most craveable foods, according to somebody who's put in basically the most amount of miles that you could possibly put in a single year, check out Pegleg's very well done article. Okay. Question of the day. This is one that you felt passionate about, which is I'm glad because I don't know if I share your passion for it. So I'm going to feed off of you here. If you knew you were safe, would you rather spend one day in ancient Egypt or one day with aliens?
Okay, so I will preface this by I wasn't that cool in high school. And I feel like if you weren't that
I don't
cool,
think you have to preface that.
but I feel like if you weren't that cool in high school, you have to have something that you got kind of weirdly into a little bit too much.
Okay.
And my thing was ancient Egypt.
All right.
And I think the first thing that just no one can really wrap their head around is how long the Egyptian Empire lasted. So I think when most people talk about ancient Egypt, they're referring to the New Empire, which is when like Ramses, Tutankhamun, that's when they built Valley of the Kings. Like all the most famous Egyptian stuff kind of happened there. And that was 1,000 years after they built the pyramids and 1,500 years or something like that before Cleopatra. So I think like the scale and how different the Egyptian Empire looked through all of these different kingdoms is so different. But I'm going to pretend it's the New Empire.
Okay.
Or the New Kingdom. And in that time, I think it was like 90% of people, if you're going there, you're a farmer. And your whole life is you farm, and then in the summer months, the Nile floods. And when the Nile floods, you're conscripted by the kingdom to go do manual labor. You are paid for that manual labor in bread and functionally non-alcoholic beer.
Toasted bread?
Oh, I don't think it was toasted bread.
Don't want it.
I don't want it. And onions. And I just think the drudgery of a day-to-day life of you live in a world without air conditioning and you're in Egypt. And at this point, I think the New Kingdom extended from, I want to say it's like Sudan to Syria. Like you're mostly just in that northwestern Africa, Middle East. It's hot. You don't have air conditioning. You were doing manual labor in the summer. You're paid for that in non-alcoholic beer. And then when you're done with that, the kingdom says, thanks, go farm. And then you probably die really, really young.
Yeah.
Aliens, it could be worse. I don't know how it could be worse. And that would at least be so novel that I have to, like, what is going on over there?
Yeah.
I have to know. I watched Project Hail Mary on the flight here.
I just watched it on
No
Friday.
way.
Yeah.
Cute movie. I liked it.
I think it was a little overhyped for me.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
I'm not trying to be like the hipster that's being like, it's not the best movie I've ever seen. I enjoyed it a lot. So I want to preface it with that. But people were saying that it was as good or potentially better than Interstellar.
Oh, I've not seen Interstellar, but
In my opinion, Interstellar is the perfect movie.
would never have propped up Project Hail Marys. I used cute for, it was cute.
Yeah.
The book was good. I think the book had way more things that happened in it.
Uh-huh.
But even if it's a world where you're breathing ammonia and it's not, I don't know. I do think I'd want to
Well, it does preface this by saying if you knew you were safe.
Oh, that's true.
So
that's
you do
true.
have the safety net of like knowing that
then
you're
I
going
would
to survive.
Yeah, totally aliens.
Yeah.
I think I can imagine what life is like in ancient Egypt, and it sucks. And I can't imagine what life is like with aliens. So that the spectrum's wide open. It could be cool.
Yeah.
The ceiling's so much higher.
If we could go far enough back in Egyptian times to like know how the pyramids are being built, I'm curious, given your obvious infatuation with the subject.
Aliens.
Do you think so?
No. I think it was slave labor.
Uh-huh.
But, I mean...
I know that I don't know enough about the subject, but I know that there's enough conspiracy theories to be like, there's no way human intelligence was advanced enough to build this as perfectly as it was built.
I tend to think that it was just ramps,
Okay.
which, I don't know. I also am not typically someone who buys into conspiracy theories,
Yeah.
except for certain ones that I get passionate about.
What's your biggest conspiracy theory?
I think that I know this is true, that FDR knew that Pearl Harbor was about to happen and intentionally took steps to allow it to happen to have an excuse to sway public opinion so that we could enter the war.
I think that tactic is used often.
Right?
When you want to do something,
It's kind of believable.
you have to get the public support behind it.
Also ghosts.
Yeah. Did you say that was a well-accepted theory?
The Pearl Harbor one?
Yeah.
Or ramps?
No, the Pearl Harbor one.
Oh, I have no idea.
Oh, I thought you, okay. That would have been news
I
to
just
me.
think it's true because I believe it.
Yeah. Okay. That's a fun one. Yeah, I would like to, if I could go back to the specific period where they're building the pyramids, I think just to have that unique sliver of knowledge, that's a convincing element for me. But yeah, the alien one, especially after watching Project Hail Mary, because at least it had a unique spin on the alien thing.
Yes.
Is like, I feel like aliens all kind of conform to the same general vibe in most movies. Sometimes they're nice, rarely, but mostly they're evil, and they're all kind of like the same like reptilian
Green,
amphibian.
yeah.
Exactly. At least this had like a really like novel take on what an alien was.
Like the whole shtick was it was like a non-carbon based life form that didn't need water.
Yeah, just rocks basically.
Yeah, which I guess that's carbon. But.
So yeah, I think maybe because aliens are fresh on the mind, that is the much more convincing sell to me.
Also, how long do you have to be there for? Because I agree, if it were just I'm going to go back for a day and watch how the pyramids
One
were
day.
built. Oh, I just don't have reading comprehension. I still think aliens. The ceiling
Yeah.
just feels so much higher on
For
what
sure.
could possibly be going on.
For sure, especially with the risk of going out to ancient Egypt, and it is just like the most standard explanation. Be
Yes.
like, oh man,
Yeah.
I gave up aliens for this.
Like, fuck, it's ramps.
Yeah, there's no. If you see an alien, there's no way you're going to be disappointed, because even if it's confirming like the Green Man theory, you can come back and be like,
Yes.
guys, I know.
Crazy idea. You go and spend a day with aliens, and you go and spend the day with aliens when they built the pyramids. Best of
Two
both
birds, one
worlds,
stone.
Right?
One large
Stone.
pyramid stone. Good. Settled that one. This one, I imagine, is going to be harder for you than it is for me, given what I know about you is you don't watch a lot of movies, or at least didn't grow up watching a lot of movies, and you have 0 children. This one is going to be very easy for me, so I'm curious to get your take. This is the triple crown of Disney/Pixar movies.
I do have opinions on this.
Okay.
I have seen many Disney Pixar movies.
Okay?
Probably not all of them. Do I get to start?
If you'd like to.
There is one that is so by and far the best.
You're going to take it. It's going to be, I'm going to be mad, but go ahead.
Oh, Ratatouille.
Oh my God, that's not at all.
Oh. Are you going to say Toy Story?
I'll say what I'm going to say. I'll let you give you
Well, I'll
spiel.
go Ratatouille. I think that movie is so beautifully done, and I think it is such a love letter to cooking and also rats. And I think the animation style in that is peak Disney Pixar. I love the way they did it. I love the way it seems realistic, but also you kind of have that magic to it, especially when you're watching the foods being made.
Yeah.
I think it is the most feel-good movie to me, where the villain isn't really even villainous. It's just a food critic who had a bad childhood. And the resolution of it, where you don't get everything you want, but you still get something nice out of it. I don't know. That movie makes me cry well into adulthood. I probably watch it once a year.
No shit.
I love that movie.
So you grew up watching that movie?
I did grow up watching the movie.
Yeah.
The one letdown, I don't like the dish Ratatouille all that much. This episode makes me sound like a picky eater. I eat everything. I just
I know firsthand that you've got a very refined palate.
I just don't like the texture of eggplant.
Yeah. This one came out at a weird time for me, 2007, which is like, I'm too old at this point to go out and see it.
That's fair.
And I'm still a long ways off from having kids. So
I was 8, so I think I was peak
yeah.
Ratatouille.
I think I was exposed to it by one of my ex-girlfriends who also loved it. But I'm sure I was like falling asleep during it. So I can't really speak to the movie. The only thing I knew was that Patton Oswalt was in it. That was my one fun fact from the movie. So I'll have to, now that Pixar is a very big deal in my house, I'll bump Ratatouille to the top of the list because it's not one of our regulars. So thank you for the inspiration there. This is the one that I was certain that you were going to take. And maybe this is just the generational difference. But The Lion King.
Oh, yeah. I have seen The Lion King.
Did it change your life?
I think I was too young.
Okay.
I don't know. It's objective. Like, the music is insane.
Yeah.
But I do think that was maybe...
94. So this is like peak. I'm 9 years old.
I'm -5. So I think...
I think that'll explain a lot of these answers. Probably.
That's probably... I mean, The Lion King, it's a classic. No one doesn't like The Lion King.
Yeah. To your point in crying, I've cried in that movie more times than I'd like to admit. Certainly when I was a child, but also into adulthood. Yeah, there's nothing more emotional than watching Mufasa fall to his death and Simba thinking that it was his fault.
I also
Scar's
think
a cocksucker.
Scar is the hottest Disney villain. if Scar were a human, I should clarify.
Cat fetish, huh?
If we're anthropomorphizing Scar, he's the hottest Disney villain.
Yeah. If we're doing a triple crown of that, it was, I think, A Land Before Time. There was one of the characters that was especially sexy.
Is that the dinosaur?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah. And I promise I'm not sweating because I'm getting turned on by cartoons.
I'm thinking about those dinosaurs right now.
It is so fucking hot
It's
in here.
so hot.
But yeah, Lion King, to your point, I think probably the best soundtrack of any Disney or Pixar movie of all time. My next pick is probably the best run for its money here, but easily, like, for my childhood, it's Lion King, and there's not even like a second that's close. for more modern day movies, and I just saw the live remake of this in the theaters, Moana.
I love that. Was on my list.
Yeah.
That was an honorable mention for me.
Moana is so good. Of the more recent movies, that I don't think there's the gap between Lion King and other Disney movies is kind of like the same gap between Moana and other Pixar movies for me. It's like
Yes.
the storyline is so good, the music's amazing, the visuals are good. I just like the setting of the like Hawaiian Islands or tropical islands, whatever you want to call it. The story writing is just so fucking good.
And I think Moana came out right as I was leaving. I was a little bit too old to really appreciate Disney movies, and I remember watching it and being like, I'm not a baby. I don't even watch Disney movies anymore. And it was so good.
Yeah.
That it kind of got to me in that teenage cloud of I'm too cool for this.
It is undeniable. It is such a good movie. And obviously Lin-Manuel Miranda, is that his name? Manuel. I don't know if he did all the songs, but he did most of them. And just, yeah, they're so catchy.
Yeah.
My kids will sing You're Welcome all day, every day.
Yes. I think if you started singing it, I'd be like a sleeper agent, and I probably would activate and still know all the words.
Yeah.
At some point I did.
Jenna even knows the part where, like, Maui's like
Yes.
mumble rapping at the end. Like, that's how much we've listened to it. Is like, it sounds like he's going "Tikka-bit-tip-bit-tip-bit," and you don't even know what he's saying. Jenna knows those words.
Look at that mini me Maui tippity tapping.
Something like that. Yeah. In the live action remake, he enunciates that part much more clearly. So you know those are real lyrics. But yeah, that's how big of fans we are as we went opening weekend to see the live action remake. And I actually thought, I went in with tempered expectations because, like, you're just watching the same movie.
I've never saw a live action remake and thought, yeah.
That's, if you go in knowing that's the best case scenario is like, hopefully this is pretty good. And that was my expectation. I'm going to entertain my children for 2 hours. I thought it was pretty good. Like, obviously The Rock was Maui and he's a good actor and there was enough new lines. It's still 90% CGI as opposed to 100% CGI.
To that point, what's...
Yeah, I don't know. They're just putting human faces sprinkled into the movie that is formerly like a cartoon. But I was entertained. It was good.
I am going to go now to what I think is probably the Disney movie with the best soundtrack, which is The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
I couldn't name one song from that movie.
It's so good. It's like... I don't even know what it
96.
scratches some itch for me.
Yeah.
Animation again is beautiful, and I like the story, but really it's the music for me that gets me. I listen to that when I'm backpacking.
All right, that's probably as much as I can play with us getting demonetized. I'll have to go back and actually give it a real attempt here, but yeah.
I don't know if I feel like I'm doing it a disservice now. If you just listen to it, the standalone soundtrack, I don't think it's as good as Lion King, but I think the songs in the context of the movie to advance the plot are so powerful.
I like this if for no other reason than you're giving me a list of movies we need to add to our repertoire, as opposed to just watching like Moana or Cars for the 1000th time. Cars is not on my list, by the way.
Me neither, but it was an honorable mention.
Yeah.
I will say I haven't watched it in a while, and I don't know when kids start watching things. The villain is very into the main, she's not a princess, I guess, but like the main woman. I think his kind of battle is like battling lust, but he's in the Catholic Church, and so I don't know if...
Is it age appropriate?
I think I definitely watched it as a kid, and I think I'm fine. But
I mean, is the age gap like? Is this like the Labyrinth where David Bowie's like trying to fuck a 14-year-old?
Well, okay, no, the age gap is definitely not. I mean, it's I don't know. It's probably legal. I think the main woman's like in her 20s, but then the old priest Catholic guy is definitely like 70. So it's weird, but
okay,
it's not illegal. I guess.
Okay.
I guess it's illegal because he's trying to kill her, but
that part, but that's the more palatable law to break, I guess.
Yeah, and it's Disney, so he gets what's coming to him, I guess. Yeah. And then my last one, I'll take Up. I just think it's sweet.
I also haven't seen Up. This one is more, I'm accepting responsibility for this one because I think this was in my Q zone in terms of time frame, and like everything I've heard about it is like, I know everyone cries within the first 10 minutes of the movie. It's
just, I don't feel passionate about it. I'm not like, this movie's incredible, but it's just really well done. Like every element of the plot is well executed, and it gets you. It's a good plot. It's a good one.
I've been reluctant to put it on, one, because now I'm doing it for my kids. Like, I'm not going to just sit down and watch Up by myself. Nothing wrong with that. I didn't. But we have to shield our kids. Like, that's a lot of emotion for them to process.
It is the first 10 minutes, like, people die.
Yeah. We always fast forward through that part in The Lion King, so it's tough. I feel like that's probably a pretty influential part in the plot where you can't just, like, yada, yada, yada.
Honestly, you probably could skip it. I mean, it explains a lot of the character of Carl, I think is the main old guy, but
okay.
I mean, she dies very early on. So.
Also, the 3-year-olds don't really know what's going
That's
on.
probably
At this
true.
point.
They're not like, oh, what are his motivations?
Yeah, right. They're not doing dissertations on the plots of these movies. Very good. Do I have one more? I think
you have one more.
One more. I'm gonna go with. Oh God, I'm torn. I'll go with a modern day one, and this is purely soundtrack based because I'm only half paying attention to most of the movies when they come on. I eventually will piece the movies together because I'm picking them up in like 15% fragments. But Encanto,
I have not seen it.
It's really good. At least I should say.
Oh, wait, no, is that the one like Mirabelle and there's a magic house?
That's I don't even know the plot that well. All I know is don't forget about Bruno. Is that the name of the song?
Okay, I have seen this. It was good. The music was really good.
No. What's the name of the song?
We don't talk about
Bruno. We don't talk about Bruno. I would say of the Pixar songs outside of Moana, this is the catchiest of the songs. And
yes.
I'm picking it purely for that reason. We don't talk about... All right.
My only honorable mention, Sword and Stone.
I haven't seen that one either.
Oh, that one's a really old one. I just watched that with my sister a lot as a kid, so I feel like it's very nostalgic.
I preface this entire thing by being like, you suck at movies, and I don't know any of the movies that you... my honorable mentions are, from my childhood, I really liked Aladdin. I think that grew to be problematic, but a 7-year-old me didn't know any better. And I really enjoyed Monsters, Inc. as well.
Yeah, oh, that's a cute one.
But, fun story, my friend who has 2 kids that are a few years older than ours put on Monsters, Inc. for them, I think when they were like toddlers, like 2-3 years old. And he's convinced that putting that movie on destroyed their sleep habits for like a year.
I believe that.
They were convinced that there were monsters in their bedroom. So like it did real psychological damage to them. So we've been reluctant to put that one on knowing the effect it's had for him. So, yeah.
It's a big gamble. You get 2 hours of fun time versus a year of sleepless
nights. Exactly. It honestly has had like a profound negative impact on him and his wife's mental health. It's kind of funny that a Pixar movie can do that. Okay, we're going to move quickly here because I don't want to sweat through everything any more than I already am.
Fair enough.
Let's jump down to the mailbag.
I'm kind of an admitted Durston Gear fanboy. I carried the X-Mid 1 and the Kakwa 55 on my AT through hike in 24. Although I made several gear choices in error, I never second-guessed my tent or pack. Since then, Durston has released the Iceline poles, and I have no reservations about replacing my beloved Black Diamond Alpine before my next long trail. I seldom bring up gear talk, but I got a lot of questions about my X-Mid. I took that tent down, balled it up, and pitched it again so many times to demonstrate how easy it was. I felt like an on-trail sales rep. Durston completes that elusive triangle of design, quality, and price, and honestly, I don't think many other things come close to that mark, in my opinion. Dan is sort of the Elon Musk of backpacking gear, says Mark.
That's the most advertisement-sounding mailbag that we've ever gotten.
I know, Dan, send us a check.
Yeah, Mark, thank you for that endorsement. I think you're in good company. It seems like people love Durston
X-Mid's
Gear.
the best tent I've ever used.
Yeah.
I didn't like the poles, though. Granted, I think I was using maybe an early version of them, but...
What was wrong with the poles?
They kept breaking. That's
a problem.
Tips on the bottom kept coming off, and then one of the screws on the thing that goes like to extend it kept coming loose. So I kept having to use a little razor blade to tighten that pretty much every day. This was on the long trail, so granted I was abusing them, but... Yeah.
I would say based on the popularity, I feel like that's something that has to have been figured out.
I'm sure, because I have not heard that from anyone else. And I think he sent them to me as a thank you for testing a tent of his on the CDT, so I think it was probably literally like first... batch that he didn't want to sell because there were probably errors in it.
Yeah. the thing I love about Dan, and I think that everyone loves about Dan, is like if you have a negative critique for his stuff, like he's so receptive to it.
Yes.
I forget who it was. Someone did a review on the Trek about his trekking poles, and it was like a really well done, thought out review. And Dan left an equally thoughtful comment, like acknowledging some of the errors, and like I think maybe he addressed like there might have been user error in some point without being like defensive.
Like, fuck you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
No, he's great. I trust him kind of just unambiguously.
Yeah.
Like the way he talks about the gear, the way I have seen him publicly speak through his design choices, there's kind of not much. I mean, I really disliked the ice line poles, and I think if my poles break now and I had to buy new ones, I probably would still go buy a pair of ice line poles.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll call that segment free ad for Durston Gear. And if you guys want to have your mailbag read on this podcast, head on over to backpackerradio.com. There's a mailbag submission form, or just email us podcast@thetrek.co. Here is the 5-star review from S. Kuntz, Teton Crest Trail. Thank you for such a great podcast and for the inspiration. My wife and I completed the Teton Crest Trail this week. We live in Florida, so elevation was a concern. The weather was amazing, and the trail was far more breathtaking than we could have imagined.
Yay.
That's a free plug for the Teton Crest Trail.
Yeah, I do want to do that one.
Yeah. I know this has been on my list for a very long time. It's close. I think the permits aren't the most competitive, fairly competitive, but like if you just have your ducks in a row.
I think you can do it without permits if you're strategic about where you camp.
Yeah, because there's
like dips in and out of the park.
Right, exactly. And I think it's an attainable mileage marker if you're starting from the south, is my understanding. And some people will do the full trail in a day. No interest in that.
Yeah,
but
no, I want to camp.
Yeah. Yes, that is a good point to bring up. If you guys want to hear your review read on this podcast, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us any number of stars. Just not
1, 2, 3, or 4.
Oh, Katie's on it. Fuck yeah. Didn't even prep you. Well done. And screenshot your review. Send us an email, podcast@thetrek.co, and we will send you a Backpacker Radio sticker. Thank you to today's title sponsor. This one is very relevant for today's podcast. This is LMNT. Drink LMNT.com/trek for a free sample pack with your order. I am so sweaty that I'm legitimately going to have to drink a giant one of these after this podcast because I've been sweating so much.
I'm so glad I'm wearing white. I think I have massive pit stains right now.
The dual layer was a smart choice on your behalf. Here's a plug for...
Oh, wow. Never mind. I'm not that sweaty.
Yeah.
I'm close to it, though.
I'm very sweaty right now. I will occasionally pit out just during our normal podcast, but I'm going to actually blame the heat on this one because it is uncomfortable in here. But yeah, the flavors are leveling up every single year. Have you tried the pink lemonade yet?
I saw it in the office, and
Snag as many
I
as you
was
want.
going to put some in my bag.
We also have the caffeinated ones. That's the lemonade iced tea. Tastes like a
Arnold Palmer.
Arnold Palmer, thank you. I always want to say John Daly. That's the one with the vodka in it. I still dig very much on the citrus, the grapefruit. People love the watermelon. We have the raspberry salt here. All of the flavors are really fucking good, but definitely check out the new flavors. The pink lemonade, and lemonade iced tea are all money. Super big thank you to our Bob Peoples Award winners on Patreon. That is Alex and Misty with Navigators Crafting. Alex Kindle, how many of these do you know?
5.
I'll pause where
Okay.
it should go and you get to guess.
At some point, I need to just write this down because
Nope.
this is now the second time.
We get to do new ones too.
Okay.
We get to invent new ones. Alex Kindle, Andrew, Austin McDaniel, Bill Jensen, Brad and Blair with 13 Adventures, Brent Mullins, aka Quinzhee, Brian Alsop,
Fables.
nice, Carl Lobster Hood, Christopher Marshburn, Clint Sittler, Coach from MyLifeOutdoors, Eric Casper,
Friendly Ghost.
nice. I have to stop nicing because I'm throwing myself off. Eric Hoffman, Ethan Harwell Dunn, Jillian Daniels, Greg Knight, Greg Martin, Griffin. Hey, would you bring me a beer? Haley Buckingham.
Castle.
Close enough. Palace.
Oh, wait.
We'll go castle. It is kind of a castle.
Okay, Palace.
Jackson Storm.
Cloud. Lightning.
Yep. Jared, not from Subway. Jason Kaiser. Jason, Zach is a little donkey girl. Snailer. Luke Netches, Maddie in Arizona. Patrick C. in Seattle. Randy Sutherland. Rebecca Braveheart.
Heart.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's mine, but I'll let you have it.
Oh,
Merle
shoot.
Juror. Sawyer Products, the St. Louis Shaman, Timothy Hahn,
Solo.
and Tracy Trigger.
Hans.
Nice.
Yes.
That was good.
That was better than last time.
Yeah. Thank you to our guy, Paulie at Old Man Murph's Coffee Roasters. Go to ommcr.com. Get yourself some delicious beans. Maybe a nice iced coffee on a hot day such as today. But we love Paulie. You can follow us on social at Backpacker Radio on Instagram and TikTok and Threads, Facebook.com/Backpacker Radio. You can follow Katie
On Instagram at Katie_trail, but Katie is K80.
Appalachian Trials and Pacific Crest Trials are my books. Would be very grateful for a review. Go and check out Chauncey's books and leave a review while you're at it. Follow us on YouTube. What's up, YouTube? Oh, I skipped the subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You guys know how to do that shit. You don't need to hit that. And that is it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening, and happy hiking.
Bye.